Everyone harbors a secret, something they keep hidden from the world. For some, this manifests as a meticulous routine, a collection of self-improvement notes, or even the careful polishing of shoes, all serving to protect a hidden truth. This new serialization promised a high-class academy comedy, brimming with vibrant, popular students. At its heart was a young man, Kitazawa Masashi, who, despite his seemingly perfect facade, carried a dirty little As the new school year began, three prominent second-year students greeted each other. Higuchi Keihu, with her bright energy, waved cheerfully, while Yagyu Ayam, an intelligent beauty, offered a polite good morning. Inako Amiko, known for her distinctive appearance, also joined the exchange, remarking on the weight of the new year. April marked the start of a new semester at Nishiki High School, located somewhere around Tokyo. It was here, within the walls of the second year of class, that a truly extraordinary incident was about to unfold. A class so remarkable, it was dubbed the Miracle Class. Inside the bustling classroom, the three famous girls from the first year were indeed gathered. Yagyu Ayam, the intelligent beauty, stood with her composed grace. Higuchi Keihu, the innocent and energetic queen of extroverts, sat casually on a desk, waving a cheerful morning. Beside her, Inakawa Miko, recognizable anywhere by her striking figure, drew the attention of all the boys. Not only were the girls present, but the top three hot boys of the high school were also all together in this very class. Shirtori UCI, with his confident smile, saluted the room, while other students whispered in awe, marveling at the assembly of Nishiki High's all-stars in one place. Shirtori UCI, an extremely smart and athletic boy from a rich family, was considered a perfect individual with no flaws. Another of the popular boys was Igosher Hirnari, known as the Igosher Girls for his immense fan base, whose charming face was something one simply couldn't overlook. A third of the popular boys, Kitazawa Masashi, was just like the rumors described. A solitary hottie, found reading a book by the window. Students observed him, noting his cool demeanor and how difficult it might be to approach him, yet acknowledging that his aloofness only made him more appealing. They recognized that this 2A class was truly exceptional. The excitement in the classroom was palpable, as students realized that all the hotties would only hang out with other hotties. Higuchi Keihu, particularly thrilled, exclaimed that this was incredibly exciting, and that the class would be great, expressing her eagerness to meet Kitazawa Kuin. As Kitazawa Masashi continued to read, a female student approached him, introducing herself. He acknowledged her, stating his motto was clear and serene. She then inquired about his reading material, asking if the book, which appeared to be about psychology, was interesting. He observed his classmates settling into the new semester. Inakawa Miko leaned forward, commenting on the tiny writing in a book, while Yagyu Iyam, ever composed, suggested Miko adjust her uniform, though Miko seemed to dismiss the idea for the day. Suddenly, a wave of panic washed over him, his eyes wide with terror as he gasped for air, bending over in distress. He rushed to the sink, splashing cold water on his face in a desperate attempt to clear his mind. But the words, "game over" and "abandon all hope," echoed in his thoughts. The cold water did little to calm his racing thoughts. He possessed a dark past, a secret he could never reveal, a truth that would inevitably be exposed, putting his deepest shame on public display. He desperately tried to calm himself, listing various proteins in his mind, but the dread persisted, a crushing weight on his cranium. His mind drifted back 7 years, to a time when he was a young boy, walking home from school, constantly tormented by bullies who mocked his weight, shouting for him to stop, oinking and move his fat legs. He could only plead for them to stop. He remembered himself then, a 4th grader in elementary school, weighing over 90 kilograms. Of bullying, of course, persisted into junior high. He was still called Pig Sawa, and even the simple act of eating pork curry became an opportunity for his tormentors to mock him, calling it cannibalism. Junior high proved to be an even worse hell. Since most of his classmates were from the same elementary school, the bullying only grew more intense. His tormentors would taunt him, asking if it wasn't painful with all his cushion and threatening to punch his 6-pack flabs. It was sheer agony just to go to school. Despite the relentless torment, a flicker of hope appears. He found himself falling in love with a girl. He, as a younger, heavier boy, found himself surrounded by a group of bullies who mocked him for drawing a girl named Shinizu. They accused him of being in love with her, their taunts echoing around him. The girl, Shimizu, overheard their cruel words, her eyes wide with shock and embarrassment as she covered her mouth, uttering a quiet, "Yikes," as the bullies continued their relentless assault, questioning if he had ever looked at himself in a mirror before daring to confess to anyone, calling him so disgusting and advising him to lose weight. Tears streamed down his face as he endured their verbal abuse. That heartbreaking event ignited a fierce resolve within him. He swore to himself that he would be reborn in high school, tempering himself into an attractive young man. He began a rigorous training regimen, running tirelessly and pushing his body to its limits, refusing to give up. And finally, he was reborn. He visited a salon for the first time, dyeing his hair and getting a perm to hide his natural curls. He achieved a physique that even shocked himself, 182 centimeters, 57 kilograms with a six-pack. He had accepted an offer to a faraway high school, 2 transit stops from his hometown, ensuring no one from his past would recognize him. He believed he would retain his springtime with this new body, or so he thought. A few weeks after entering high school, he noticed something. Even if his outward appearance had changed, he was still Pigzawa deep inside. He reflected on his past, a life he considered happy despite being a lone wolf, frightened to talk to anyone, even the boys. He lacked the communication skills required to interact with girls. That was until now. Now surrounded by his new classmates, including Yagyu, Shiratori, Higuchi, Anakawa, Igosher, and another female student. He felt a familiar discomfort as they gathered for a group photo. Yagyu held up her phone, ready to capture the moment, while Higuchi and Anakawa smiled brightly and Shiratori and Igosher laughed. Taguchi, her face beaming, turned to him and cheerfully invited him to karaoke after school. He realized he was in huge trouble. He found himself caught in a social dilemma, internally debating the invitation to karaoke, while his classmates cheerfully suggested it was a good idea for getting along, and only for today he desperately wanted to refuse. He hadn't visited Shibuya in a long time and wondered what normal people did in such situations, feeling a strong aversion to going no matter what. His mind raced, convinced that refusing would lead to an outcome he dreaded. He questioned if he was truly unpopular, recalling how people used to call him Pigsawa back in junior high, a painful memory that made him fear being seen as bad news if he didn't conform. He felt utterly trapped, like a sheep surrounded by wolves in a minefield. He knew he couldn't afford to let them discover his past, and thus he had to find a way to refuse their invitation without revealing anything. Despite his internal turmoil, he found himself at the karaoke session, unable to refuse. His classmates were vibrant and energetic, singing with uninhibited joy. He observed them, realizing that for popular people, engaging in such lively activities was simply normal, a stark contrast to the raunchy stigma he associated with it from manga and anime. He concluded that the best course of action was to simply go along, avoiding any disruption. He silently pleaded for the situation to resolve itself without drawing any attention to him, hoping to remain completely unnoticed. His hopes were quickly dashed, as his classmates, particularly Yagu, insisted he sing with Yagu, even commenting on his muscular physique, internally cursing the extroverts. He realized he had no choice but to sing at least one song. He began searching for a song in his repertoire that he believed would be acceptable to everyone. With a microphone in hand, he stood before the screen, a bead of sweat tracing his temple. The title of his chosen song, "Ride on the Tail of My Blue Lion," appeared, ready for his performance. Yagyu, holding a tablet, leaned in and remarked that when discussing classic best-hit songs, there was truly no other choice but the one he had selected. But he explained that the song was the main theme from a famous drama he watched in junior high, a legendary piece often heard in late-night reruns and variety shows. Another male student confirmed it was indeed from an old drama, while Yagyu listened intently. As he sang, he was convinced that no one would find his song choice strange. Yet, a creeping realization dawned on him. No one was actually listening. His classmates were engrossed in their phones or other conversations, leaving him to wonder if he had made a terrible blunder. Yagyu, however, looked at him with a hint of concern. He continued his song, but his attention was drawn to Yagu, who watched him with an intense, almost angry gaze. He wondered if she was upset, his mind racing to imagine her disdainful thoughts, that he should not presume to blend in with them, that a pig like him had no place singing among them. Despite the enthusiastic praise from Igosher and Higuchi, who declared his voice really hot and suggested a duet, he remained fixated on Yagyu's imagined judgment, convinced she was silently condemning him. A wave of relief washed over him as he convinced himself he was successfully blending in. Inakawa and Shiratori discussed a popular duet, with Inakawa lamenting that she hadn't thought of it first. Then, Higuchi turned to him, asking if he would sing with her, while Shiratori inquired if he knew the anime opening Majority Prince, a show he admitted to also follow. Yet the insidious thought persisted, twisting every interaction into a cruel mockery. He imagined them turning his very presence into a pig stage play. The self-deprecating image of a pig began to consume his thoughts, manifesting as a grotesque vision of himself. As Higuchi pointed out Inakawa, noting her popularity for her double pigtails, and Shiratori mentioned a character named Kamiyama Kaori playing the heroine. The word pig echoed in his mind, now associating with the innocent mention of pigtails. The innocent comments twisted into a nightmarish hallucination. He saw himself sprawled on the floor, his classmates towering over him, their laughter echoing as they made veiled references to porked-up subtitles and no piggy blisters. He knew it, he thought. The truth was out. He was a pig, and everyone knew it. But overwhelmed by the imagined scorn, he fled, convinced his classmates were thinking exactly what he feared. That a pig like him could never truly belong with them, that his presence would only make them look strange, and that he should simply disappear. As he ran, he heard Yagyu's voice, a faint Kitazawa Kuen, trailing behind him. He found himself outside, huddled alone in the pouring rain, the karaoke building looming behind him. Despite his earlier hopes of a fresh start in high school, despair consumed him. He was certain he would be mocked, his future ruined, and he wondered how he could possibly face tomorrow. As he wallowed in his misery, a figure appeared, shielding him from the rain with an umbrella. It was Yagu, who calmly asked him what he was doing. Startled, he stammered, wondering why she had followed him after he had run away so abruptly. She stood over him, an umbrella shielding her from the downpour, and asked if it was raining. He, huddled on the ground, internally panicked, realizing she knew his secret. He stammered, claiming he merely sought fresh air, confirming his suspicion that she was indeed that girl. Despite his flustered state, she extended a hand, calmly instructing him to come. He looked up, bewildered, questioning her intent. In a desperate plea, he grabbed her arm, begging her not to reveal his secret, emphasizing that his entire high school life hinged on her silence. To his astonishment, she leaned in close, her hand gently resting on his, and echoed his plea, asking him not to tell anyone about her secret. He stared, dumbfounded by the unexpected turn of events. She, blushing and visibly distressed, then accused him of attempting blackmail before reiterating her desperate request for secrecy regarding her own hidden past. With tears welling in her eyes, she pointed an accusing finger, demanding to know if he had sung the opening song from the drama Dreamless Girl. A show she had been part of, she confessed her strenuous efforts to conceal her past until now. He, still utterly confused, tried to ask what she was talking about, but she pressed on, demanding to know his true intention. He gasped as she revealed her knowledge of their shared elementary school class, convinced he intended to expose her identity as Onuki Iam. The name resonated with him. A sudden realization dawned. During their elementary school days, a child actress prodigy, Onuki Iam, had joined their class, cast as the main heroine in a popular drama. Her sudden appearance had caused a considerable stir among the students. However, the narrative continued. A shocking news report surfaced. The famous child actress, Kamiyama Kanei, from the very same drama Dreamless Girl, was suddenly announced to be taking a hiatus from the acting industry due to a domestic scandal. The scandal deepened as news broke that Kamiyama Kanei's bullying co-partner was, in fact, Onuki Ayam. This revelation, coupled with a torrent of rumors, became the catalyst for widespread public condemnation and a severe backlash against Onuki. She had vanished from his sight. Kitazawa, still reeling from the revelation, called out her former name, Onuki Iyam-san. He recalled the day she first joined their class, how everyone had been excited, and how he himself had been a little scared, a memory he still held. He reflected on the song he had heard earlier, which had triggered a flood of dark memories, making him paranoid. He wondered if he had overreacted if others hadn't noticed the connection. She looked at him, her face flushed with desperation, and pleaded with him to keep her secret. "So please don't tell anyone, okay?" She explained that her life had been completely upended after her past became public. She had tried to erase her identity as Onuki Ayam. He listened, understanding the gravity of her plea. The memory of her past trauma manifested as a desolate school hallway, where a desk was covered in hateful messages and the walls were plastered with anonymous notes. Her home had been flooded with calls, and the harassment seemed endless. Her eyes welled with tears as she recalled how everyone at school had suddenly turned on her, calling her a bad person. She wondered why they had believed gossip and rumors over their own friends, concluding they were all foolish. She continued, explaining that ever since she disappeared from the public eye, she had never truly felt good. That was why Onuki Ayam was dead. She had changed her family name to Yagyu and moved far away to a new high school to start anew. Kitazawa listened intently, his expression serious. She apologized for the burden, but he assured her it was understandable. He admitted that he too wanted to forget his past and start fresh, and in that, he could sympathize with her. He then bowed deeply, his head touching the wet ground, and made his own desperate plea. "Please don't tell anyone about my secret too." She looked at him, her eyes wide with surprise and a blush spreading across her face as he reiterated his promise to keep her secret. She, still squatting before him, inquired which of his secrets he was referring to, her expression a mix of curiosity and expectation. She then clarified her own secret, stating that she was really fat back then, implying her past appearance was the trauma she carried. Kitazawa reacted with a stunned, disbelieving gasp. He visibly flustered, admitted his misunderstanding regarding the true weight of her secret. Despite his embarrassment, he reiterated his earnest plea for her to keep his own secret confidential. Yagyu, now standing and holding her umbrella, offered a knowing smile to Kitazawa, gently reminding him that he had, in fact, forgotten about her. Kitazawa, startled by her words, quickly apologized, but Yagyu, with a playful glint in her eye, revealed she was merely teasing him. She then leaned in close to Kitazawa, her expression turning serious as she declared that the pact to keep secrets applied to both of them. She warned him that if either secret ever leaked, one of them would inevitably be identified as the culprit. Kitazawa, still overwhelmed, insisted he was not the type to betray someone else's trust. With a confident smile, she suggested they head back, noting that their prolonged absence might arouse suspicion from others. Kitazawa, still processing the intense exchange, found himself wondering what had truly just transpired. Under the bright sun, a strategy began to form, a perfect plan to keep both their secrets safe. The next morning, Kitazawa arrived at school, greeted by his classmates. He reflected on the previous day's events, realizing that maintaining a careful distance from Yagyu was the best approach to prevent their shared secret from ever leaking. He clenched his fist, his eyes wide with a mix of determination and anxiety as he grappled with the implications of his new secret pact. He found himself flustered as Yagyu, with a blush, proposed they walk home together. His initial shock was evident, but he quickly agreed, causing her to beam with delight as they walked side by side through the school hallway. Moments later, during lunch, he stared in bewilderment at two elaborately wrapped lunchboxes, one adorned with hearts and the other with paw prints placed before him. He wondered aloud about this unexpected strategy. Yagyu, observing his confusion, explained with a gentle smile that she had simply made too much food and suggested they eat together. He remained internally flustered, questioning what was truly unfolding. Their classmates, including Shiratori and Egosher, observed the scene with a mix of curiosity and envy, remarking on how pleasant the situation appeared. Shiratori then openly questioned Kitazawa and Yagyu about ditching class the previous day, suggesting they had become quite chummy. He pressed further, asking if something significant had transpired between them, while Egosher feigned a stomachache to avoid direct involvement. As Yagyu tenderly fed Kitazawa with chopsticks, Shiratori and Egosher exchanged knowing glances, their expressions confirming their suspicions. Kitazawa, caught in the act, felt a surge of panic. Shiratori, now more assertive, declared that Kitazawa clearly harbored a secret, whether big or small, much to the shock of Shimizu and other onlookers. Kitazawa, visibly distressed, tried to maintain his composure while sipping from a straw. With a determined expression, Kitazawa took Yagyu's hand and announced to everyone that they were officially dating. He understood that this was the only way to protect each other's secrets. Yagyu smiled, her eyes reflecting a shared understanding as she confirmed their new arrangement to share secrets and, in essence, become accomplices. Kitazawa's eyes swirled with a mix of resignation and anxiety. The news of the two popular students forming a couple on the second day of the new semester spread like wildfire, eliciting gasps and excited reactions from their classmates. This was the tale of a man undergoing a profound transformation, battling against his own hidden truth. He found himself at the center of a whirlwind, his hand covering his face in a gesture of overwhelmed embarrassment as Yagyu Iyam, radiant and smiling, held onto his arm. Kitazawa Masashi had strived to reach the pinnacle of high school, to transform into the true heartthrob. But now, with his first and entirely fake girlfriend being the school's undisputed beauty, his life was destined for turbulence. He could only wonder, with a sense of dread, what in the world was truly going to happen to him. Whispers spread like wildfire through the school halls. Ayam-san had a boyfriend, and it was Kitazawa. Students reacted with a mix of disbelief, envy, and amusement, noting that it had only been 2 days into the new semester. Some lamented that winners like them seemed to live life on easy mode, while others felt their own romantic delusions were now shattered. Amidst the swirling rumors, Kitazawa and Ayam were indeed seen together, Ayam holding his arm as they walked. Onlookers commented on their seemingly flirtatious behavior, solidifying the perception of them as a new, attractive couple. As they descended a staircase, Ayam turned to him with a playful wink, asking if their charade was progressing his plan. He, however, was visibly flustered. His face flushed as he stammered, questioning the very nature of their supposed relationship. She calmly reiterated that their public display was merely a part of their larger strategy, designed to protect both of their secrets. He acknowledged their promise to keep their past hidden, and she then revealed her own secret. She was Unuki Ayam, a former child actress whose career had ended abruptly. She then pointed a finger at him, reminding him of his own past as Piggy Zawa, implying a significant physical transformation. Ayam further explained her intricate plan. If they entered a romantic relationship, people would be less inclined to pry into their individual pasts. She reasoned that as a couple, they could easily deny any rumors about their former selves, making it impossible for anyone to believe that her handsome boyfriend could have ever been Piggy Zawa. Kitazawa began to grasp the cunning logic of her scheme. She confidently declared that with her as his girlfriend, no one would ever believe he once looked like his past self, effectively ending any gossip. Impressed by her cleverness, Kitazawa praised her intelligence and vowed to guard her secrets with unwavering loyalty. As he leaned in, still expressing his admiration, Ayam blushed and told him he was too close. He then reminded her that her earlier act of linking arms with him was part of her acting mode, implying a similar calculated move. He then suggested, for both their sakes, that they walk home together after school. Ayam, with a small, surprised sound, agree. After school, a commotion erupted as students pointed towards the school building, where, one student exclaimed, while another shouted, "There! That's Kitazawa!" He stood by a window, observing the growing crowd, and internally noted that he was gathering far more animosity than he had anticipated. Nearby, other students gossiped, remarking on his well-built physique and calling him a Chad womanizer for supposedly making Ayam-san fall for him on the second day of the semester. They believed he had always had his eyes on her since last year. As he descended the stairs, more students called out his name, some with admiration, others with envy. He recalled Ayam's instruction that they were supposed to meet at the gates, and he affirmed he would be there soon. The sheer popularity of Ayam among the boys was evident in the reactions of those around him. Suddenly, he stumbled, colliding with a female student and sending them both sprawling to the floor. He cried out in surprise, quickly apologizing for the student he had knocked over. Inakawa Miko slowly stirred, looking up at him with wide, sleepy eyes as he asked if she was all right. Around them, the animosity towards Kitazawa continued to grow, fueled by the incident. Inakawa then suggested they leave, prompting Kitazawa to question her meaning. She reminded him that they were both part of the library committee and were on duty that day, implying that his mind had been elsewhere. She then explained that they needed to go home together, a statement that surprised him. When he asked if she truly would, she cheerfully agreed, offering to send a message to Ayam to let her know. He gratefully accepted, telling her to leave it to him. But later, at the library, Kitazawa stood beside Inakawa at the counter, reflecting internally that he had honestly never expected this turn of events. Inaka then turned to him, expressing her shock at hearing that Ayam and he had started dating, and asked which of them had confessed. He stammered, trying to explain the situation, but she quickly interjected, guessing that it must have been him, given Ayam's past declaration. She elaborated, recalling that Ayam had made a declaration in her first year, stating she would never have a boyfriend, as she had no time for such things and needed to focus on study. Anakawa continued, explaining that since they were in the same class, she knew Ayam had rejected every boy who had bothered her with a confession, and she had thought Ayam was serious about her declaration. She then pressed Kitazawa, demanding to know how he had managed to make such a girl fall for him. He could only stare back, dumbfounded by her persistence. He found himself cornered by Inako Amiko, who, with a mischievous glint in her eye, questioned his supposed relationship with Ayam. She implied he might be a piggish type who somehow managed to win over the Ice Princess, leaving him flustered and feeling suspected barely a day into their fake romance. She continued to press him, her smile unwavering as she declared her love for love stories and admitted a touch of jealousy towards Ayam. Kitazawa remained flustered, internally questioning her true intentions. Miko then revealed a surprising truth. She had always been interested in Kitazawa, even half a year prior. This confession unfolded as other students in the background discussed Ayam's reputation for rejecting everyone, wondering why Kitazawa hadn't pursued Miko instead. She walked through the school hallways, acutely aware of the male students' leering gazes and crude comments about her physique, particularly her chest. Their whispers about wanting her as a girlfriend made her feel self-conscious. Miko confided in Ayam, expressing her jealousy of Ayam's popularity with boys, and her sadness that no one seemed to look at her beyond her chest. Ayam, in turn, offered reassurance, telling her not to worry too much and asking if there was anyone truly good enough for her. Miko internally lamented that she did not wish to display her body for everyone. Ayam, with a serious and resolute expression, declared that she already knew a wonderful man and had no need to look at any other. Miko listened, her expression thoughtful. Miko walked alone, still attracting unwanted attention and comments from male students about her body. She internally wished she could find someone as good as the man Ayam had found, and questioned why her chest had to be so prominent. She spotted Kitazawa reading a book, noting that he was from Class D and always appeared serious while engrossed in his reading. A desire to talk to him stirred within her. Nico approached Kitazawa, greeting him and asking what he was reading. He responded that it was a history novel. She then asked if he could show it to her, but quickly realized she was about to stare intently at him. She was surprised when Kitazawa looked at the book, not her, and offered to lend it to her since he had finished reading it. He then bid her farewell and walked away, leaving her with the novel. She reflects on the limited interaction they've shared, acknowledging that it was merely a polite exchange. Yet, even that brief moment was enough to spark a profound interest in him. As she observes Kitazawa engrossed in a book within the library, she wonders if he holds even the slightest interest in her. She yearns to confirm her feelings, but the thought of betraying her friend Ayam, who is supposedly in a relationship with Kitazawa, causes her hesitation. Despite her internal conflict, she resolves to approach him. Her hand reaches out, gently removing his glasses, a silent plea for him to truly see her. Kitazawa, startled by the sudden removal of his glasses, looks up in surprise as Miko urges him to look at her. She then complimented his eyes, finding them beautiful. However, Kitazawa, now without his visual aid, struggled to see anything clearly. He then declared that her eyes seemed to shine, despite his impaired vision. Despite his words, Miko's internal monologue was filled with self-doubt, comparing herself to Ayam and feeling like a pig. She desperately tried to stop her own actions, overwhelmed by her insecurities. He then vehemently denied being a pig, his voice strained as he struggled to see without his glasses. Miko, still holding his glasses, was taken aback by his intense reaction. Suddenly, he leaned in close, his face mere inches from hers, causing Miko to panic internally. She questioned his intentions, reminding herself that he was Ayam's boyfriend. His anger flared as he demanded she never touch his glasses again, stating they were dearer to him than his own life, and that her actions were messing with his feelings for Ayam. He then located his glasses, expressing relief as he put them back on, while Miko was left in distress, realizing the depth of his commitment to Ayam. She remained visibly upset, her heart aching as she wished Kitazawa would express such strong feelings for her. Justice he had for Ayam. Her jealousy burned fiercely, yet she vowed not to give up. Meanwhile, Kitazawa found himself approached by a new, confident student who seemed to be trying to get his attention, leaving him looking flustered. A confident student, Shiratori, fixed Kitazawa with a smirk and commanded him to come along. Kitazawa, taken aback, questioned Shiratori's intentions. Shiratori, revealed to be the school's soccer club ace, was surrounded by adoring female students who cheered him on for his upcoming match. Kitazawa, bewildered, wondered why such a popular and accomplished student would want anything to do with it. Sure, Tori led Kitazawa away from the school grounds and directly to a fast food establishment named MK Donuts, much to Kitazawa's visible shock. Inside, Shiratori casually remarked on the fun they had at karaoke the previous day, then declared his desire for a man-to-man talk with Kitazawa today. Kitazawa, realizing he had been brought to a fast food joint, felt a surge of fury. Shiratori's expression hardened as he internally accused Kitazawa of taking I am from him, revealing a deep-seated desire for her that he had harbored for a long time. Returning to the present conversation, Shiratori asked Kitazawa what he would like to order. He mused internally about Kitazawa's identity, reminding himself to be cautious and not push too hard, as he had heard Ayam dislike the idea of having a boyfriend. Shiratori announced he had secured a table for them, which Kitazawa accepted with a wary thanks. Shiratori then declared his intention to show all his hands because he was Nishihai's #1, a statement that left Kitazawa visibly startled. Kitazawa, holding his drink, told Shiratori to stop acting so cool, pointing out that hot guys don't eat junk food. Shiratori, however, calmly explained that he only ordered iced tea because he wasn't hungry and needed to watch his calories. Kitazawa, observing the food, internally lamented that it had been 2 years since he last ate at such a place, and that the food looked tempted. Shiratori then shifted the conversation, asking Kitazawa if he had ever been part of a sports club. Kitazawa, still observing Shiratori's composed demeanor, wondered if this perfect cool guy act was what had made Ayam fall for him, concluding that this conversation was proving to be good. He reflected on the tea ceremony club, where preparing and sipping tea with courtesy brought a calming peace. He considered getting even closer to the serene experience. But suddenly Shiratori interrupted his thoughts, demanding that Kitazawa add him online. Kitazawa, taken aback, questioned if Shiratori truly wanted to add him, noting that Shiratori typically avoided adding girls. Shiratori, growing impatient, insisted Kitazawa show him his QR code, exasperated that he seemed to not even know how to add someone. With a sigh, Shiratori took Kitazawa's phone, scrolling through the friend list. Kitazawa, internally bewildered, wondered why he had to add himself to another guy's phone. Shiratori then revealed Kitazawa's sparse contact list, which contained only his mother and little sister. much to his own amusement. Shirotori found Kitazawa's lack of contacts utterly baffling, while Kitazawa, in stark contrast, realized he himself had over 300 contacts. Changing the subject abruptly, Shirotori then inquired about Ayam's whereabouts. Kitazawa explained that he had no way to contact Ayam, which Shirotori found amusing, questioning how they could possibly be going out if he couldn't even reach her. Shirotori then mentioned an upcoming event this Sunday, prompting Kitazawa to ask for details. As Kitazawa pondered the event, a cheerful girl with bright eyes and a wide smile appeared, announcing that it was Higuchi's birthday. She announced a surprise party for Saturday, prompting Shirotori to ask Kitazawa if he would be joining them. Kitazawa, surprised, initially thought it wasn't his birthday, but quickly offered his congratulations. Higuchi then clarified that it was, in fact, her birthday party, pointedly telling Kitazawa he was not invited. Despite the direct exclusion, Kitazawa, with a look of determination, declared he would definitely attend. As Kitazawa pondered the need to shop for new clothes and prepare for the event, he thanked Shirotori, who was already walking away. Shirotori, meanwhile, mused internally that inviting Kitazawa was a strategic move to ensure Ayam's presence, while Kitazawa considered Shirotori a truly cool guy for adding him online and extending the invitation. The scene then shifted to Saturday, a bright and sunny day at a bustling theme park, complete with a towering Ferris wheel and thrilling roller coasters. At the park, Shirotori greeted Kitazawa, noting his simple yet well-chosen attire. Kitazawa expressed surprise at the number of people in cosplay, while Ayam remarked on how long it had been since she last visited a theme park. He also observed Igosher, who apparently loved thrill rides, and heard that the other girls were expected to arrive soon. Moments later, Ayam and Anikawa arrived, with Anikawa cheerfully announcing she had prepared lunch for everyone. Ayam commented on the beautiful weather, while Kitazawa was visibly flustered by their appearance in casual attire. Both Ayam and Anikawa beamed, clearly enjoying the sunny day and the festive atmosphere. Kitazawa, still observing, noted how the girls' feminine qualities were amplified by their casual clothes, finding both Ayam and Anikawa incredibly cute. Just then, Higuchi arrived, apologizing for her delay, and Kitazawa realized she was the true star of the day. Higuchi, radiating energy, greeted various friends from different schools, including Morishita, as she carried shopping bags. Kitazawa was utterly captivated by her popularity and beauty, realizing she was a true school queen and felt her presence closing the distance between them. Holding out a drink, Higuchi expressed her joy at spending the day with everyone and offered one to Kitazawa. He was completely mesmerized by her sparkling presence, while Shirotori observed his reaction. Kitazawa, despite his awe, internally reminded himself that Higuchi was just like the others, even though they had only recently become acquainted. She, full of boundless energy, leaped into the air, her laughter echoing through the theme park. Around her, the group of friends, including Kitazawa, Shirotori, Ayam, and Anikawa, watched her vibrant display. Ayam, ever observant, pointed out another group nearby, noting their attractiveness. Shirotori, however, quickly interjected, warning Kitazawa not to utter the word birthday, to which Kitazawa nervously agreed. Shirotori then playfully teased Kitazawa and Higuchi, calling them lovebirds, causing Kitazawa to blush. Higuchi, seemingly oblivious to the surprise aspect, then turned to Kitazawa and innocently asked what he had gotten her for her present. Kitazawa, internally flustered, could only think about how he couldn't leave her alone. Her question hung in the air, and the full weight of it crashed down on Kitazawa. His eyes widened in a sudden, horrified realization as the word present echoed in his mind. The smiles of Higuchi and their friends around him seemed to mock his sudden lapse. Thus, the truth struck him with the force of a physical blow. He had completely forgotten to buy Higuchi a birthday present. A tiny, frantic image of himself screamed in his mind, overwhelmed by the monumental oversight, while Higuchi continued to smile, blissfully unaware of his internal panic. Kitazawa found himself in a dire situation at the theme park, having completely forgotten Keihu's birthday present. As Keihu joyfully accepted a gift from another, He panicked internally, realizing the gravity of his oversight and fearing things would turn very bad. His friends teased him about his forgetfulness, with Higuchi remarking that it was his first time celebrating someone's birthday. Higuchi then took Keihu's hand, advising her to be careful with her steps. He watched them, feeling a mix of relief and concern, as Higuchi suggested they could stay for one more round before leaving. She then turned to him with a friendly, winking smile, asking him to accompany her to the haunted house. Keihu explained that Miko and Ayam were unwilling to go, leaving him surprised by her directness and the warmth of her invitation. They entered the haunted house, a place Kitazawa considered a rare talent entrusted only to a few, or so he thought. Inside, a gloomy atmosphere enveloped them as they stood amidst the eerie decor. A spectral figure, a ghost, suddenly shrieked for help. Meanwhile, Higuchi, observing from a distance, scoffed at the sight of what she perceived as public flirting, suggesting they used their 10 years of experience to truly scare the couple. The spectral figure was startled by a dog-like ghost that lunged forward with a roar. Keiho, despite her fear, expressed concern for the ghost, asking if she was cold in her dress and urging her to be careful not to catch a cold. He was astonished by her unexpected empathy. The spectral dog then nuzzled Keiho, who found it incredibly cute and wondered if she could keep it, even asking if it would hurt to touch it. He marveled at her extraordinary communication power, realizing she could befriend even ghosts. Spectral figures waved goodbye to Keiho as they departed. She thanked him for accompanying her. He seized the opportunity, asking her if there was anything in particular she liked, believing it was a good moment to learn more about her. She began to list her interests, mentioning skiing, making sweets, and playing the piano as he listened intently, absorbing every detail. He internally lamented his own hobbies, anime, games, checking voice actor blogs, and muscle training as a super indoor type that, while perhaps cute, offered no insight into Keihu's interests. Moments later, Keiho approached him, beaming as she showed off cookies she had baked, proudly stating she had given some to Miko and the others. He complimented her, asking if they turned out well, but his mind was still consumed by the dilemma of finding her a suitable birthday present. As she held up her phone, a notification suddenly flashed across the screen, announcing the successful purchase of a Shiroi Ojusama limited figurine Memphis. From an online shop, he stared, wide-eyed, as a wave of realization and embarrassment washed over him. Keiho, flustered by the unexpected revelation, quickly tried to explain that the notification wasn't what it seemed. He, equally flustered, quickly suggested they join the others, attempting to divert the awkward moment. However, Keiho was now completely absorbed, her eyes sparkling as she exclaimed that the figurine was from Shirojou, the season's best anime. She passionately praised the voice actor Nakaju Misen for her performance as Lilith and Kei Teskuin for playing Memphis, noting the internet was abuzz with accolades for them both. Meanwhile, Kirizawa, Higuchi, Ayam, and Miko were gathered. He, now understanding Keihu's true interests, regretted not having gone to the haunted house with her, realizing it had been a perfect opportunity to connect with her unique abilities. Higuchi, Ayam, and Miko enjoyed their ice cream, oblivious to his internal turmoil. Keihu continued her enthusiastic explanation, detailing how she had been closely following all the works by director Mitsui, asserting that Shirojou was exceptionally great compared to other anime this season. He, surprised by her deep passion, admitted he hadn't expected her to like anime so much. She defended her interest, acknowledging it might seem otaku-like, but emphasizing the superb character development. He then questioned why she kept her remarkable communication skill a secret, suggesting there was no need to hide it. Keiho hesitated, her expression softening as she revealed that during junior high, people had been crept out by her abilities. In a flashback to her junior high days, a younger Keiho excitedly showed two classmates a Marikuin from Panstar sticker, proudly pointing out Cameo Sand signature and declaring she had used all her life's luck to obtain it. Her classmates, however, looked uncomfortable, one asking, "Anime again?" and the other simply uttering her name with a hint of concern. Since then, Keiho explained she had been diligently working to fit in with others, focusing conversations on popular dramas, idols, or sports, topics they could all understand rather than her true passions. He listened intently, a new understanding dawning upon him. He listened intently as Kiho explained her past, revealing that her deep interest in anime and her unique ability to perceive supernatural entities had led to social isolation. She had hidden her true self for a long time, and he now understood the depth of her story. He realized he was glad to have learned this about her, but then suggested they return to the others, acknowledging their conversation had gone on for too long. As they prepared to rejoin the group, a sudden realization struck him, causing his eyes to widen and panic. He had completely forgotten something crucial. Higuchi, Ayam, and Miko approached, noticing his distress. Miko then reminded him about the present he was supposed to bring. He immediately apologized for his oversight. Higuchi and Ayam quickly reassured him, explaining that they had invited him out of the blue, so he shouldn't worry about not having time to prepare a gift. Despite their reassurances, he still felt a pang of guilt, lamenting that someone like him, an introvert, perhaps shouldn't have come to a gathering of extroverts. He worried about what everyone would say tomorrow. Miko, however, suggested they could simply look for souvenirs at a nearby shop, dismissing his self-deprecating thoughts. Miko then looked at him with a gentle expression, emphasizing that the most important thing was his feeling, not the object itself. As long as it conveyed his sentiment, it would be perfectly fine. He considered her words, understanding that the sentiment truly mattered. He realized Kiho would likely be happy with that approach. As they continued their walk, they passed by a lively area where people in elaborate costumes were posing, drawing a crowd of onlookers. Suddenly, he declared that he had come up with a good idea and abruptly ran off, apologizing and telling the others to go ahead without him. Moments later, Kiho arrived, looking around and asking where Kitazawa had gone. Before Kiho could fully process his absence, Higuchi, Ayam, and Miko surrounded her, holding out various gifts. They joyfully wished her a happy birthday, surprising her completely. Keiho was overwhelmed with happiness, thanking each of her friends for their thoughtful presents, which included a necklace and onyaku goods. She then asked with a hint of disbelief if the entire day had been planned for her. As Keiho and the others continued to wonder about Kitazawa's sudden departure, Higuchi's phone buzzed. She checked it to find a message from Kitazawa stating that something had come up and they should all go home. She wondered if Kitazawa truly did not know it was Higuchi's birthday, or if he merely claimed to have something else to do before they could return. Her friend, Keiho, reassured her that it must be something important he could not ignore, though she still felt it was unmanly of him to cause such worry. She resolved to address him about it later. Meanwhile, Kitazawa, standing alone, noticed a peculiar figure approaching. He wondered what was happening as the cloaked individual drew nearer. The figure, a young man in an elaborate dark cloak and glasses, dramatically declared his presence, stating he had come to pick up his malady. The sudden appearance of the costumed man left Kitazawa and his friends, Keihu, Higuchi, Ayam, and Miko, utterly bewildered. He stood before them, striking a pose, as the group stared in confusion, with Kitazawa himself looking particularly dumbfounded. The group began to question him, asking him to stop the joke and wondering about his costume. He, however, dismissed them as commoners and declared he was there to pick up the princess of the light world. Suddenly, Keiho's eyes widened, sparkling with tears of joy and recognition as she cried out a name, Memphis. The cloaked man, Memphis, knelt before Keiho, extending his hand and offering his deepest apologies for his tardiness, stating he had come for his milady's birthday. Keiho, flustered and blushing, was overwhelmed by his theatrical gesture as he gently took her hand and asked if he might borrow some of her grace's time. She then explained to her bewildered friends that he was an anime character she loved dearly. Keiho, still flustered from the dramatic entrance, averted her gaze from Ayam, who observed her with a slight blush. Ayam, surprised by Keihu's request to borrow Kitazawa, who was still in his Memphis costume and holding Keihu's hand, hesitantly agreed. Keihu, beaming with a wide smile, apologized to Ayam for the sudden imposition. As Memphis and Keihu walked away, Keihu's friends observed them. Higuchi, Ayam, and Miko, along with the mascot characters, were surprised by the unexpected turn of events, with Higuchi expressing delight at seeing a scene from the anime. Kitazawa, still in costume, realized Keihu was enjoying this moment more than anything else. Now inside a Ferris wheel gondola with Kitazawa, Keihu expressed her profound gratitude, blushing deeply. She had not expected him to go to such extraordinary lengths for her. Kitazawa, still holding Keihu's hand, attempted to clarify the situation, insisting that it was not what she might be thinking. Inside the gondola, Kitazawa, still dressed as Memphis, admitted to Keihu that he had forgotten to bring her a present for her birthday. Keiho, looking at him with a soft expression, told him he shouldn't worry about a present. Kitazawa, however, insisted that he simply wanted to convey his feelings to her. Keiho looked down, still blushing, as Kitazawa continued, explaining that there was nothing to be embarrassed about when it came to enjoying things. He emphasized that it was perfectly fine to express what one truly enjoys, even if those feelings did not reach others. Meanwhile, the Ferris will continue its slow ascent, offering a view of the amusement park below. Kitazawa, looking directly at Keihu with a gentle smile, further elaborated, stating that the feelings of love one has for something will undoubtedly make others happy too. He wanted her to know this, speaking as someone who shared similar passion. Keiho, deeply moved by his words, looked down, a soft yeah escaping her lips. She reflected on her past, realizing she had always lived in fear of rejection, which was why she only ever spoke to others about things they liked. But then, a wave of understanding washed over her. Anime was a great Japanese culture, celebrated worldwide, and there was absolutely nothing to be ashamed of regarding her own passions. As she processed this, Kitazawa, still in his Memphis guise, asked her to turn slightly so he could see her from the side. She thanked him, calling him Memphis, and he urged her to take pride in the things she loved. Blushing deeply, she then asked if she was his Memphis, and if her actions were acceptable, before leaning in and planting a soft kiss on his cheek. He froze, his face turning crimson with shock, while below, Higuchi and Ayam watched their reflections in the Ferris wheel car. He could only stammer, utterly overwhelmed by the unexpected affection, his mind reeling from the sudden intimacy. Meanwhile, on the ground, Higuchi, Ayam, and Miko observed the Ferris wheel through binoculars. Higuchi questioned Ayam about what the two were doing up there, to which Ayam simply replied that they were just chatting. The day continued with various people strolling along the bustling street, enjoying the vibrant atmosphere of the amusement park. Later, Keiho enthusiastically explained to Higuchi and Miko how Memphis, in the story, had undergone reincarnation to save Roselia, detailing how one could follow the narrative through both manga and anime. Higuchi, intrigued, expressed interest in watching Shiroi Oju and admitted her happiness at seeing such a passionate side of her friend. Elsewhere, Kitazawa, still in his Memphis costume, found himself surrounded by other cosplayers who thanked him for the close-up picture and revealed they had enjoyed applying his makeup. He felt a profound sense of debt, overwhelmed by their efforts. He found himself surrounded, with people clamoring for photos, calling out his name. He tried to politely refuse, explaining that he wasn't doing that again, despite the good reactions the previous photos had received. Still, the request persisted, and he seemed genuinely confused when asked about the Memphis thing and a birthday surprise, claiming he had missed it because he was riding the roller coaster. Keiho, however, beamed at him, offering a heartfelt thank you. Meanwhile, Higuchi and Ayam observed the scene from a distance. Higuchi playfully lamented the new rivals appearing, while Ayam used that Keihu had ultimately found Kitazawa's present to be the best one. As the day drew to a close, a voice echoed across the amusement park, thanking everyone for attending. Later, as they walked away from the park, Keihu expressed her gratitude to Kitazawa. She explained that thanks to his help, she had been able to take the leap and convey her true feelings. He acknowledged her happiness, noting that it seemed to mean more to her than any physical presence. As they continued their walk, Keiho casually mentioned the kiss on the cheek that had occurred on the Ferris wheel. His eyes widened in shock. He stammered, trying to make excuses, claiming it was a big misunderstanding and that Higuchi had just been standing there out of the blue. Keihu, however, cut him off, telling him there was no need for excuses, especially since they weren't actually going out. She reiterated that the entire situation had been nothing more than an act, a pretense, and therefore, there was no reason for her to feel angry about it. Frustrated by his reaction, she stomped her foot, declaring that his explanation didn't sound convincing at all, and suggested they just go home. As she turned to leave, her foot caught on a discarded banana peel, sending her flailing backward. Just as she was about to hit the ground, he swiftly moved, catching her in his arms. He held her securely, a confident smirk playing on his lips, while she looked up at him, utterly flustered. Onlookers watched the dramatic rescue, some commenting on his unexpected coolness, others on her sudden transformation into a hottie. Kitazawa, drenched in sweat, pushed himself through a rigorous morning jump rope session. His counter showed 180 jumps, and he urged himself to complete just 20 more, determined not to lose focus. He silently vowed to leave his past self behind. From the doorway, Ayam called out, reminding him that breakfast was ready. He continued his intense training, his body now lean and muscular, a stark contrast to his former self. He reaffirmed his commitment, declaring he would never revert to being Butazawa again. Meanwhile, his younger sister, observing him, wondered if jump rope was truly effective for weight loss. At the breakfast table, his sister pressed him, asking if it was good for losing weight. Kitazawa, now in his school uniform, confirmed that jumping at a high pace burned fat efficiently and consumed a lot of energy. His sister, recalling his transformation from fat Oni-chan to a tall, decided she should try it too. As they ate, Ayam, with a mischievous glint in her eyes, playfully fed Kitazawa a piece of food. She then directly asked him if he had actually managed to get a girlfriend since enrolling in high school, causing him to blush profusely and choke on his food. Moments later, Kitazawa quickly gathered his things, announcing he was leaving for school and thanking them for the meal. His sister, still at the table, teased him about his reaction, claiming it was suspicious and that he must have a girlfriend. Kitazawa vehemently denied it, insisting it was merely an act. His journey to school involved changing trains twice, a 2-hour commute that gave him time to reflect on his morning routine of jump rope and breakfast. He found solace in the fact that his current disciplined life was far removed from his past as Butazawa. As he arrived, a crowd of students, mostly girls, excitedly greeted Shiratori, a popular upperclassman, who walked past with an air of effortless charm. Ayam was also among the students observing the scene. Shiratori continued to be the center of attention, surrounded by freshmen who admired his popularity. One student expressed their desire to shake his hand, while another asked for his autograph, explaining they had seen him at a soccer match. Shiratori, accustomed to the adoration, readily agreed. Despite the constant attention and admiration, Shiratori internally dismissed the advances, revealing that he was not interested in any of them. His true affections lay elsewhere. Later, in the school hallway, Shiratori observed Kitazawa and Ayam from a distance, wondering what they were discussing. Kitazawa, flustered by Ayam's close proximity and what he perceived as her morning flirtation, quickly excused himself to go to the toilet. Ayam, leaning in close to Kitazawa, whispered to him, asking if he understood that their charade had gone smoothly and that no one suspected their relationship. She urged him to continue keeping their secret. Shiratori, still watching from afar, overheard snippets and wondered what secret they shared. Kitazawa, visibly uncomfortable but resigned, assured Ayam he would keep their secret, confirming he understood the arrangement. Ayam delivered an unexpected declaration to Kitazawa, stating she would overlook his previous kiss with Kiho. Kitazawa, visibly stunned, internally questioned what he had just heard. A scene shifted to Shiratori, who, still stewing over the situation, confronted a male friend in the locker room. He angrily warned him not to make Ayam doubt Kitazawa's sincerity. His friend, shocked, realized the implication. Kitazawa was supposedly dating Ayam. Meanwhile, Higuchi Keihu, also present, cheerfully interjected, asking if the kiss had happened at the amusement park. Elsewhere, Kitazawa, looking distressed, hurried with Ayam, worried about being late for class, while she urged him to wait for her. Higuchi Keihu, seemingly oblivious to the brewing tension, was later seen in the girls' locker room, cheerfully changing with Ayam and 2 other female friends. Ayam, however, maintained a serious expression. Shiratori then directly confronted Kitazawa in the locker room. his expression stern as he asked if Kitazawa truly liked Ayam. He recounted his own enjoyable trip to an amusement park the previous Saturday, thanking Shiratori for the invitation. Kitazawa remained speechless, his mind racing. Shiratori pressed the issue further, brandishing his phone to reveal Kitazawa's sparse contact list, which only contained his own name, his mother, and his little sister. He questioned why Kitazawa, if truly dating Ayam, wouldn't have her contact information. Kitazawa, flustered, insisted that his feelings for Ayam were obvious, and that they were indeed going out. He continued to interrogate Kitazawa, pointing out the strangeness of not knowing basic details about his supposed girlfriend, such as her birthday or blood type. Kitazawa, visibly sweating under the pressure, stammered that he wasn't accustomed to using chat application. The confrontation escalated rapidly as Shiratori grabbed Kitazawa by the collar, accusing him of being a bastard for his actions despite dating Ayam. Kitazawa frantically tried to explain it was a misunderstanding, but Shiratori cut him off, revealing he knew about the kiss with Higuchi. Before Kitazawa could react, Shiratori made a surprising move, kissing him on the cheek and declaring he wouldn't let him escape. Kitazawa, stunned and blushing, internally questioned the nature of the kiss, while Shiratori quickly clarified it was merely a light one. Kitazawa's shock was palpable, letting out a cry of surprise. Sure, Tori, still holding him, smiled and suggested they head to the field, while a male friend called out, reminding them they would be late for class. This situation quickly devolved into a chaotic scene as Kitazawa found himself surrounded by an angry Higuchi Keihu, who branded him a playboy, and a furious Ayam, who accused him of toying with her feelings and cheating with Higuchi. Shiratori, meanwhile, smirked, playfully wondering which girl he should choose, while other male students expressed their disapproval and eagerness to confront Kitazawa. He stood with a determined gaze, his thoughts fixed on Ayam, vowing to protect her. Meanwhile, a physical education class was underway, and the teacher instructed the students to split into 2 teams and don jerseys. One student, wearing jersey number 4, casually remarked that he didn't mind if they played seriously, as long as no one got hurt. Another student, wearing a Nishi shirt, echoed the teacher's instruction. He found himself in the first P class of the new semester, unknowingly wearing the Aces jersey, number 10. To his dismay, the activity was soccer, his self-proclaimed arch-nemesis. As the game began, he internally grappled with the need to avoid looking foolish, wondering what he would do if the ball came his way. He resolved that he would have to employ his ultimate move, a strategy designed to conquer any boss. As he executed the strategy, which he called NPC mode, he appeared to be moving along with the plays, but was in fact continuously moving away from the ball to ensure it never reached him. Shiratori, observing from the sidelines, recognized it as an ultimate move Kitazawa had created in grade school. Elsewhere, Ayam and Higuchi Keiho were also engaged in their own physical education class. Ayam, struggling to balance a soccer ball on her head, admitted her dislike for sports and her desire to simply roll around in her bed, stating she would pass on participating. Higuchi, however, wished they could play with the guys, noting that they were all first years. They continued their conversation, with one girl noting that the ball was coming down. Higuchi then asked Ayam if Kitazawa was good at soccer, to which Ayam responded with uncertainty, admitting she didn't quite know. Back on the boys' field, the teacher declared the game over, citing bad weather and stating that the students had done enough. Kitazawa felt a wave of relief that it had ended peacefully, but Shiratori, noting the 2-2 tie, insisted they couldn't just stop and should decide a winner. He then announced he had a good idea. He then proposed a one-on-one penalty kick battle between representatives of each team, suggesting it would be over quickly. Other students cheered, expressing their reliance on Shiratori. Kitazawa, looking wary, internally acknowledged that he needed to make something clear. Shiratori then directly challenged Kitazawa Masashi to a penalty kick battle, declaring that Ayam's happiness was on the line. The girls watching, including Ayam and Higuchi, gasped in shock, while Kitazawa himself looked stunned. Shiratori, with a confident smirk, added that he would be able to make Ayam happier than Kitazawa could. He leaned in, his voice firm as he declared the terms of their wager. If Kitazawa lost, he would have to break up with Ayam. Kitazawa's eyes widened in utter disbelief, his mouth agape. Around them, Ayam, Kitazawa's sister, Higuchi, and their friends gasped, their faces reflecting the shock of the sudden, high-stakes challenge. Despite the shocking ultimatum, Ayam, her cheeks flushed with a mix of hope and determination, looked directly at Kitazawa. She reminded him that he was her boyfriend and urged him to accept the challenge. Shiratori, maintaining his confident smirk, reiterated his own commitment, stating that if he were to lose, he would obey Kitazawa's every word. Kitazawa, visibly sweating and overwhelmed, found himself trapped between Ayam's earnest plea and Shiratori's unwavering challenge, while his sister and friends remained frozen in disbelief. Due to Shiratori's misunderstanding, Kitazawa found himself challenged to a soccer penalty kick battle, a sport he was not skilled at. The stakes were incredibly high. If he lost, he would be forced to break up with IAM. He internally cursed his predicament, realizing he couldn't simply run away now that others had noticed a boisterous crowd had already gathered, eager to witness what they called the classic "don't fight over me" kind of thing between the two handsome students. As the crowd swelled, Ayam, Higuchi, and Kitazawa's sister watched intently. Ayam, her expression of concern and hope, quietly urged him to win. Shiratori, radiating an intense, fiery aura, confronted Kitazawa. He asserted that Kitazawa had pushed Ayam too far, leaving him no option but to accept the challenge. Kitazawa, though visibly nervous, met his gaze with a newfound resolve and accepted the terms of the penalty kick battle. A male teacher, stepping in as referee, began to explain the rules of a penalty kick, describing it as a game where players take turns shooting and defending the goal. He then outlined the specific conditions for their match. If Kitazawa could score 3 consecutive shots, he would win. Conversely, if Shiratori managed to block even one of his shots, Shiratori would be declared the victor. Shiratori, now positioned in the goal, fixed his gaze on Kitazawa and asked if he was ready, his expression conveying an unwavering determination not to lose. Kitazawa, with the ball at his feet, prepared to take his first shot. Kitazawa unleashed a powerful shot, sending the ball hurtling past Shiratori, who barely had time to react. The crowd gasped, realizing the shot was as fast as a bullet. Shiratori, momentarily stunned, acknowledged the sheer power of the super shot. Ayam and the other onlookers watched, visibly impressed by Kitazawa's unexpected skill. With his first successful shot, Kitazawa stood confidently over the ball, preparing for his next attempt. Shiratori remained in the goal, still appearing surprised by the previous display of power as the other students watched from behind him. The female friends, including Ayam, Higuchi, and Kitazawa's sister, were utterly amazed by his performance. They expressed their surprise at Kitazawa's hidden talent in sports, wondering aloud if the match would now turn into a close fight. With renewed determination, Kitazawa prepared to take his second shot, his gaze fixed on Shiratori as he challenged him to come at him. Shiratori, still guarding the goal, watched his opponent intently, bracing for the next powerful strike. He launched himself into an overhead kick, defying expectations. The ball soared towards the goal as Shiratori, caught off guard, could only watch while the onlookers gasped in astonishment. The powerful kick sent Shiratori tumbling to the ground, leaving him momentarily stunned. Ayam, witnessing the unexpected move, wondered if such a daring overhead kick would still count as a miss, even if it didn't find the net. Meanwhile, Kitazawa calmly retrieved the ball, confirming his earlier statement that he hadn't missed. But Shiratori, recovering quickly, had already scored another goal, his confident smirk betraying his earlier surprise. He taunted Kitazawa, remarking on his poor soccer skills and how he had been avoiding the ball during their previous match. Kitazawa, now cornered by other players, had no time to react as Shiratori put him in a difficult position. As Shiratori stretched, seemingly unfazed, 2 male friends observed Kitazawa's predicament. One remarked that Kitazawa, despite his good looks, seemed quite pathetic on the field, while the other agreed, finding his performance rather lame. The laughter of the other students echoed across the field, but Higuchi and Kitazawa's sister quickly came to his defense, insisting that Kitazawa was trying his best. Ayam, blushing deeply, also spoke up, asking them not to laugh at her boyfriend. She then quietly thanked Higuchi and Kitazawa's sister for their support. Kitazawa then turned to Shiratori, apologizing for making him keep their secret. He acknowledged that Shiratori likely felt the same way about the situation. As Kitazawa placed the ball for his next shot, Ayam, her eyes filled with determination, urged him to show everyone what he was truly capable of. Shiratori watched his expression unreadable. Shiratori, with a confident grin, asked Kitazawa if he was ready. Kitazawa, his gaze sharp behind his glasses, declared his intent to win. The other students and the teacher watched intently, while Higuchi and Kitazawa's sister cheered him on, urging him to do something. Kitazawa prepared to take his shot, determined to return to that moment of unexpected skill. Moments later, 2 soccer balls lay in the back of the net, and Shiratori, overwhelmed, collapsed to his knees, crying out in despair. As Shiratori remained distraught, 2 male students from the opposing team taunted him, calling him Pigazawa, and criticizing him for being a fatso who couldn't even dodge the ball, let alone catch it as a goalkeeper. Humiliated and defeated, he crouched on the ground, clutching his head as memories of past failures, moments where he simply trembled, resurfaced. Meanwhile, Kitazawa, his eyes sharp behind his glasses, resolved to unleash his own killer shot. With a powerful kick, Shiratori launched the ball, declaring it his ultra-super-magna rocket shot. He felt a profound sense of rebirth, believing all his effort had culminated in this moment, leaving his past self behind. Despite Shiratori's conviction, Kitazawa, with an incredible display of agility, dove and managed to stop the ball, making a spectacular save. Shiratori lay on the ground, stunned, while the teacher cheered, exclaiming that Kitazawa had stopped the shot. Sure, Tori continued his assault, but Kitazawa blocked his shots consecutively, demonstrating an unexpected talent for goalkeeping. The teacher wondered aloud why Kitazawa was only now awakening such skill, while a friend questioned how he could be so bad at. He attempted another named shot, the Splash Blast Emerald Hard Shot, but Kitazawa caught it with ease. A student on the sidelines cheered for Kitazawa, observing that Shiratori's shots were visibly weakening over time. Shiratori stood, frustrated and bewildered, questioning why he couldn't score at all. The teacher noted that Kitazawa seemed to have completely transformed midway through the match. Ayam and Kitazawa's sister, observing the scene, reflected on Shiratori's self-assured belief that he, a serious and earnest Aikman, would be preferred over a playboy like Kitazawa. Sweat dripped down Shiratori's face as he looked out, his expression desperate, appealing directly to Ayam and asking if she didn't agree with his assessment of himself. However, Ayam's attention was entirely on Kitazawa. She shouted encouragement, urging him to look at the ball properly and to swing his foot all the way through. As Shiratori prepared for yet another shot, Ayam continued to coach Kitazawa, instructing him to keep his eyes on the ball and to follow through with his swing. Shiratori unleashed his final desperate kick, sending the ball hurtling towards the goal. Kitazawa, however, remained focused, his gaze locked on the incoming ball, ready to defend. He stood amidst a roaring crowd, their cheers echoing the declaration. The victor of the Aikman battle is Kitazawa. The students around him celebrated wildly, shouting that the ball had gone in. His eyes, wide behind his glasses, reflected the shock of the moment, still processing the incredible outcome. Meanwhile, Shiratori lay defeated on the ground, lamenting his inability to react to the situation, acknowledging his complete loss. He thought about how Kitazawa could be so handsome, cheered on by his girlfriend, using all his strength to respond to her. Nearby, Ayam, Higuchi, and Kitazawa's sister celebrated joyfully, exclaiming "Yippee" and all. As Kitazawa approached, asking if he was all right, Shiratori glared up from the ground, declaring he had lost at the one thing he was best at, and was prepared to do anything Kitazawa commanded. He added sharply that he did not need Kitazawa's pity. Shiratori, still defiant, demanded to know what Kitazawa wanted him to do, asserting himself as a man of his word. He internally wondered if Kitazawa would ask for money, make him run naked around the school, or become his gopher. Kitazawa, however, seemed hesitant, his expression uncertain as he began to speak, asking if Shiratori could. To everyone's surprise, Kitazawa finished his request, "Teach me soccer." Shiratori looked stunned, while the surrounding students murmured in disbelief, questioning if Kitazawa had truly won, and if soccer was really fun. Some wondered if they should do it again, or if it would be better after school or during lunch break. Meanwhile, Ayam watched the scene unfold, a soft smile gracing her lips as she thought about how hard Kitazawa had fought for himself. Kitazawa, in turn, looked at her, a grateful smile on his face, thinking how great it was. He then turned to Ayam, embracing her shoulders and thanking her profusely, crediting his victory entirely to her cheering. Ayam blushed deeply at his heartfelt gratitude. Shiratori, still sitting on the ground, declared he could not afford to lose, while Kitazawa, flustered, tried to explain to a pouting Ayam that he didn't really mind if he lost. Internally, he thought about how he wanted to protect Ayam. He then leaned in close to Ayam, his face flushed, and stammered out a declaration, your boyfriend. After all. Ayam's eyes widened in shock, her face turning a deep crimson as she processed his words. She was overwhelmed. Her face flushed crimson as a profound realization settled upon her. As I thought, she mused internally. I really do like Kitazawa-ko. Her flustered state did not go unnoticed by her friends. Taguchi Keihu, observing her, remarked with a hint of envy that she was jealous of Kitazawa. Around them, other students chattered, some noting that having a lover seemed nice, while others urged Shiratori to return to the classroom. Ayam, still deeply blushing and seemingly lost in thought, prompted a concerned friend to ask what was wrong with her. Ayam navigated her daily school life, a routine filled with small interactions and quiet moments of reflection. She often found herself lost in thought, perhaps contemplating the complexities of her own identity amidst the bustling school environment. A specific memory surfaced, one where Kitazawa, noticing her injury, had offered a band-aid with genuine concern. His kindness had caused a blush to creep across her cheeks, a moment that lingered in her mind. The vivid memory faded as she slowly awoke, a lingering blush still warm on her face. She blinked, adjusting to the morning light filtering into her room, before her gaze drifted towards the familiar exterior of her home. As she lay in bed, her phone vibrated, displaying the time, 8 o'clock. It was a holiday, leaving her to ponder how to spend the day. Moments later, another notification appeared, a message from her cousin, Nana, asking if she was free. Later, as she stepped out, she was greeted by Nana, who exclaimed how cute Ayam looked with her changed hairstyle. Nana, in turn, was complimented on her appearance, and the two cousins, both 20 years old, exchanged warm greetings, expressing how long it had been since they last met. Nana then revealed her desire to visit a famous crepe shop in Harukuku, eager to try a specific jalapeno mustard anchovy crepe. While they enjoyed their crepes, Nana began to confide in Ayam, complaining about her current boyfriend who constantly demanded to know her whereabouts. She lamented that her previous relationship had been much easier, despite her ex having cheated on her. Continuing their stroll, their conversation turned to living arrangements in college. Nana mentioned living alone in Chiba, sharing a room to make it cheaper. She then mused about how college life seemed fun once one passed the entrance exams, allowing for freedom to do as one please. As they savored their treats, Nana abruptly shifted the topic, declaring she had spoken enough about herself. She then turned her attention to Ayam, directly asking if she had a boyfriend, causing Ayam to blush deeply. Her cousin's reaction was immediate and boisterous, her eyes wide with excitement. Nana exclaimed that Ayam's situation sounded amazing, like something straight out of a shoujo manga, particularly the idea of a fake couple. Settling down, Nana reflected on Ayam's past, acknowledging her struggles and how well she had overcome them. She understood Ayam's desire to keep her past as a child actor a secret, especially if it was to protect her current situation. Nana then pressed for more details, eager to know the full story of this fake boyfriend derangement. She felt her cheeks flush as Nana, observing her habit of chewing on her lip, directly asked if she liked Kitazawa. Ayam's mind drifted back to grade school, recalling how Kitazawa had been the only one kind to her after a past scandal, a memory that still made her heart pound. Her thoughts continued to recount Kitazawa's small acts of kindness, lending her a band-aid when she was injured or picking up an eraser she had dropped. Though seemingly ordinary, these gestures had left a lasting impression. Nana, connecting the dots, realized Ayam was talking about the same prince from grade school who was now in high school with them. Ayam then remembered Kitazawa avoiding people during their freshman year, a situation she felt powerless to change since they were in different classes. Now, as sophomores in the same class, she felt a renewed urge to muster her courage. Nana, however, was less patient, pressing her cousin about the fake relationship and urging her to confess her true feelings. She further recalled a time at karaoke when Kitazawa sang a song from a drama I.M. had acted in, making her wonder if he was testing her. She had simply gone along with it, but now realized Kitazawa had his own share of problems back then, leading to a complex situation. Nana, growing exasperated, declared that Ayam's habit of overthinking and acting too mature was her downfall. She insisted that Ayam simply needed to tell him how she felt. Ayam gasped in shock at Nana's blunt suggestion of kissing, protesting that she was still a grade schooler at heart. Nana dismissed her, telling her to think about the previous step, and then asked how Ayam intended to confess directly. Still dazed, Ayam wondered if Nana was suggesting something melodramatic or overly adult. Nana then proposed a surprise visit to Kitazawa's house, a suggestion Ayam found terrifying. Just then, a male teacher who had been present in Ayam's earlier flashback appeared, seemingly having just arrived. Nana, shaking her head, told Ayam she was terrible at romance and that her answers were far too serious. She advised her to simply look straight into Kitazawa's eyes. Leaning closer, Nana instructed Ayam to clearly say, "I like you." Ayam's face contorted in an expression of utter shock and embarrassment at the thought of uttering such words, while Nana smirked, wondering who else would say it if not her. She found herself on the school rooftop the following day, having invited Kitazawa for lunch. The wind felt amazing up there, she remarked, but he questioned the sudden request for a rooftop lunch together. As they settled down, Kitazawa, holding his bento box, suggested that going out was normal, and they should show off to everyone. She, still flustered, agreed, then quietly uttered a prayer of thanks before eating. She then attempted to feed him, but her embarrassment quickly overwhelmed her, making her exclaim that she couldn't do it. Meanwhile, Nana, observing from a distance, internally questioned how Ayam planned to confess her feelings. Kitazawa, oblivious to Ayam's inner turmoil, reminisced about a field trip they took when they were first graders, noting how eating outside felt like a field trip. Her face flushed crimson as she struggled to form words, while Kitazawa looked at her with a curious expression. Nana's internal monologue continued, urging Ayam to ensure they were alone and to confess when the mood was right, or even to make him confess instead. But suddenly, the private moment was shattered as a group of students, including Nana, burst onto the rooftop, startling both Ayam and Kitazawa. They complained loudly, demanding to know why they were having lunch alone. Among the new arrivals, a male student with spiky hair and a female student with short. Light hair enthusiastically declared it unfair for only two of them to have lunch on the rooftop, insisting that they were all friends and should join. I am utterly flustered by the sudden intrusion, tried to protest, while Nana, with a mischievous grin, playfully pushed the spiky-haired male student. Ayam's mind raced back to another embarrassing memory, a time when she was beet red in the middle of something, and she wondered if she would ever get another chance to tell her feelings. With the rooftop now bustling with students, Nana observed the scene with a knowing smile, internally noting that she smelled a complicated relationship unfolding, suggesting this might turn out to be something interesting. A young man named Uno Kuen approached Inakawa Miko, apologizing for the suddenness of his request. He cut straight to the point, asking her to go out with him, explaining that they got along well, and suggesting they go on a date. Miko, visibly flustered, could only stammer an apology. She then turned her back to him, her expression hidden, and asked if his question meant she already had someone else in mind. Unokuin, sweating profusely, could only respond with a strained "yeah," as she offered a heartfelt apology, insisting it wasn't because she disliked him. Later, Inako Amiko was seen blushing intensely as Kitazawa Kuin stood nearby. Her thoughts drifted to Raimon's Kuin, an idol, and the realization that he was Ayam's boyfriend. She internally acknowledged that there was no way she could ever voice her feelings about him. She reflected on her predicament, wondering if she had no choice but to give up on someone she had been interested in since her first year. Meanwhile, two male students nearby whispered crude comments about her figure, observing her as she stood lost in thought. Moments later, Kitazawa Kuen rushed into the library, his glasses askew, apologizing profusely to Inako Amiko for making her wait. She stood by a table, her expression tinged with sadness, looking away from him. He asked if she had finished tidying the books. She apologized, explaining that she had been working on it. He noticed her downcast demeanor and wondered if she had been crying. She then mentioned a manga, the tale of the 15 castaway boys, which had captured her attention, recalling it as a good one she had read in elementary school. Among the books, one stood out with the title, How a Love Starts from One-Sided Love to Every Girl Out There. Make your confession 100% work. Inako Amiko intently read the book, her eyes wide with determination. The first chapter advised, let's become someone who capture his interest. First of all, you need to appeal yourself. She then approached Kitazawa Kuin, who was organizing books, and hesitantly asked if she could ask him for some advice. He looked at her, surprised, as she held up the book on One-Sided Love. Blushing deeply, Inakawa Miko confessed that she liked someone in her class. She explained that this person already had a friend, but she didn't want to give up on him. Kitazawa Kuen's eyes widened in shock, his mind reeling from her unexpected revelation. She pondered if her crush would ever realize her true feelings, her cheeks flushing as she considered how to directly appeal to him. Meanwhile, Kitazawa Kuin, surrounded by other students, was suddenly asked for relationship advice. He appeared startled, internally questioning if this was a test of his perceived charm. He then responded to her, acknowledging her beauty but expressing concern about her crush's girlfriend, whom he described as beautiful, kind, and intelligent. He reiterated his suggestion that she appealed directly to the person she admired. However, she lacked the confidence to approach him head-on, revealing that she had recently gained some weight. She nervously wondered if she had overdone it, believing she only needed a subtle way to appeal to him. Suddenly, Kitazawa Kuin, with unexpected agility, vaulted over a desk in the library, calling out her name. He confronted her, his face intense, demanding to know if she would accompany him to the rooftop. She gasped in shock, her heart pounding, yet a part of her wondered if her efforts to appeal to him had actually worked. As she processed his words, he began to remove his blazer, declaring that she had excited him. She quickly protested, telling him it was far too soon for such actions. She blushed profusely, feeling overwhelmed. She explained that for their first time she desired something more special and not in such an exposed location, especially since they hadn't even shared a kiss. He apologized, admitting he could no longer hold back. He then clarified his true intentions, loudly proposing that they go work out together. He enthusiastically explained that he possessed the training knowledge to help her burn off what she needed. She realized her misunderstanding, recognizing this as an unexpected opportunity to grow closer to Kitazawa Kuin. He immediately put her through an intense workout, instructing her to stop and maintain her posture, emphasizing breathing techniques to strengthen her body. She struggled, finding the exercise incredibly difficult, while he explained how it would reduce fat and strengthen her rectus muscle. Exhausted, she lay on the floor, remarking on Kitazawa Kuin's extensive knowledge of workouts. She then recalled seeing him running in the mornings on his way to school, realizing his dedication to fitness. She knelt on the ground as Kitazawa Kuin instructed her that planking was next. She considered his hobby of training his body, thinking that if they shared the same interest, she might be able to get closer to him. Her face flushed deeply, and her body began to tremble with a mix of exertion and embarrassment. Still in the plank position, she nervously asked Kitazawa Kuin if she was performing the exercise correctly, her face still red and trembling. He reassured her, telling her she was doing great and that they would start with 30 seconds. Internally, She wondered how she had ended up in such a situation. She reflected that having people look at her chest and body was initially quite uncomfortable, but she pushed through, recalling his earlier instructions to support her entire body with only her arms and legs, and to pull her stomach in. Moments later, Kitazawa Queen, now close beside her, held a timer and declared the exercise complete. She blushed, realizing that if it was him, she didn't mind the close proximity. He then announced that they would end the set with a stretch. He took her arms, pulling her upwards, causing her to exclaim in surprise as her body was lifted. He smiled, noting how good this felt, and she silently agreed. As he stretched her, she was pulled over his back, her face close to his. She felt the warmth radiating from his back and blushed even more deeply. Kitazawa Queen adjusted his glasses, stating that they had completed the basic exercises. He expressed his belief that this routine would help her shape up and gain the confidence she needed to approach the guy she liked. She briefly thought about how she had already touched him, but then he reminded her that they still needed to tidy the library. As they attempted to leave the rooftop, Kitazawa-kun discovered the door was locked, rattling the handle in frustration. Inako Amiko exclaimed in surprise. Kitazawa Queen then realized he had left his phone in the library and that its battery was dead. Inako Amiko suggested calling someone, but then wondered if a patrolling teacher had locked the door. The full implication dawned on her. They were alone until tomorrow. Her heart began to pound. Kirizawa, his face etched with profound regret, pressed his hands together in a desperate plea, repeatedly apologizing to Inakawa-san. She, however, waved her hands in a dismissive gesture, earnestly assuring him that the fault was not his. Inakawa explained that the entire predicament stemmed from her earlier mention of wanting to lose weight, while Kirizawa, burdened by guilt, lamented that he was to blame for asking her to the rooftop, which resulted in their current predicament of being locked out. The rooftop door, secured with a heavy chain, was undeniably locked, leaving them isolated. Inako Amiko, observing their predicament, felt a blush creep across her cheeks as she considered their solitude. She then offered a reassuring smile to Kitazawa, telling him not to worry, though internally she pondered their next course of action. While Kitazawa remained in an awkward stance, her eyes widened and her heart began to pound with a rapid rhythm. A sudden, thrilling realization struck Inakawa Miko. This unexpected, isolated moment with Kitazawa might just be an incredible opportunity. Still consumed by anxiety, he frantically scanned the rooftop, hoping to spot a patrolling teacher, but the area remained deserted. He despaired, realizing their complete isolation. Meanwhile, Inako Amiko, her cheeks flushed with resolve, internally declared that she must seize this very moment to capture Kitazawa's affection. He conceded to their situation, acknowledging that their only option was to patiently wait for someone to eventually discover them. Inako Amiko, feeling parched from her previous exertions, took a long, satisfying gulp from a bottle of tea, remarking to herself how intensely thirsty the workout had left her. She then extended the bottle to him, offering some of her tea. This was, in her mind, the first step of her indirect kiss plan. Kitazawa, taken aback, questioned her generosity but swiftly accepted, confessing his own thirst. Inako Amiko watched him drink, her mind racing with the question of whether he had grasped her underlying intention, only to quickly reassure herself that he remained oblivious. Holding the bottle, he was overcome with profound embarrassment, the realization hitting him that he had just shared an indirect kiss with Inako Amiko. He secretly hoped she had not noticed the dampness under his arms. She, equally flustered, fretted over what to do next, desperately wishing he would return the bottle to her. Still flustered, he let out a sigh of relief, hoping his intense embarrassment would soon fade. Suddenly, the sky opened, and rain began to fall. She exclaimed in surprise at the unexpected downpour, while he wondered aloud about the recent increase in rainy days. Together, they decided to seek shelter. The sudden downpour instantly drenched Inako Amiko, causing her clothes to cling revealingly to her form, and she cried out in surprise. Kitazawa, witnessing her soaked appearance, immediately shielded his eyes and profusely apologized, insisting he had seen nothing. She, noticing his flushed cheeks, wondered if he was finally becoming aware of her, while he, in his mind, simply dismissed the event as an ordinary sudden rain shower. Shivering from the sudden downpour, she suggested they dry their wet clothes to avoid catching a cold. Kitazawa, flustered by her transparency, tried to avert his gaze as she began unbuttoning her shirt. She then urged him to also remove his soaked garments. As she continued to shed her uniform, revealing her bra, Kitazawa struggled to maintain his composure, his eyes darting away. In the background, he too began to remove his own wet shirt. Now, both shirtless, they sat close together on the rooftop ledge. She proposed they stay near each other for warmth, her mind racing with curiosity about Kitazawa's thoughts in that intimate moment. He, meanwhile, was in the state of internal panic, feeling as though his composure was about to shatter. It was his first time seeing a girl in her underwear, and he desperately tried to remain calm. She, despite her embarrassment, felt a strange sense of acceptance, believing it was permissible because it was with Kitazawa. Kitazawa sternly reminded himself that Inako Amiko had someone she liked, and therefore he should not look at her in such a way. She, observing his averted gaze, wondered if she was somehow unattractive. He then hung his wet shirt to dry, creating a small barrier between them. A subtle shiver ran down her back, a testament to the chilling air. She shivered again, then let out a sneeze, feeling cold, hungry, and utterly miserable. She sighed, questioning her own actions as the sky darkened, making her feel even more empty inside. Kitazawa remained nearby, also exposed to the elements. She lamented that Kitazawa hadn't even spared her a glance, making her feel as though all her attempts to advance their relationship had been utterly in vain. Observing her shivers, Kitazawa decided he could not allow a girl to catch a cold, especially Inakawa-san, who already had someone she liked. He moved closer, embracing her from behind, and assured her of his warmth. She was startled by the sudden comforting contact. He thought to himself, offering a silent apology to Anako-san, even though he believed she had someone else in her heart. He held her close, his heart pounding, a blush creeping across his face as the realization dawned on him. He was actually doing something like this. Inako Amiko, pressed against him, also flushed her eyes wide with surprise. Still in his embrace, she wore only her bra, her back to him, as his blush deepened, and his own heart continued to throb with an intense rhythm. Anako Amiko, blushing profusely, looked up at him and began to explain. "You see, the one I like is—" She then pointed directly at his chest, causing him to gasp and stammer her name in utter shock and embarrassment. Just as the intimate moment unfolded, a group of their friends, including Ayam, Nana, Unokuin, Ryman's Queen, and other students, appeared on the rooftop above, looking down in stunned silence. Ayam, her expression of mix of surprise and confusion, called out his name. His eyes widened behind his glasses, his face still flushed as he uttered her name in disbelief, the sudden appearance of their friends amplifying his shock. The situation quickly escalated into a flurry of reactions. I am internally questioned if Miko was now a rival, while he trembled, overwhelmed. Nana revealed she had received a text from Miko's mother stating she wouldn't be home, making their current predicament look even worse. Unokuen panicked. Raymond's Kuin angrily accused him of cheating not once, but twice, and another student declared it a matter of life and death. Amidst the chaos, a male student tried to clarify that it wasn't what it looked like, and Anakawa Miko vehemently shouted that they had it all wrong. Ayam, however, calmly intervened, a gentle smile on her face. She told them she understood, and that they should go home once they were dressed, expressing her relief that they were both okay. He, still flustered, attempted to explain that he was merely helping Inako Amiko with exercises to lose weight because their uniforms had gotten soaked in a passing shower, and she had almost caught a cold. Inako Amiko, now fully dressed, offered a grateful smile to Ayam, thanking her. Then, with a sudden shift in demeanor, she declared with fierce determination that she would not lose to her. He, meanwhile, felt a wave of relief that Ayam didn't seem upset, and he thanked the group for their help as they began to disperse. Egosher Hiranari found himself in a state of utter bewilderment, a piece of bread escaping his mouth as his eyes widened in shock. The day had just begun. But already, something unexpected had thrown his routine into disarray. This sudden disruption was not the thrill of bungee jumping, nor the unsettling scuttling of roaches, nor even the chilling presence of ghosts. It was something else entirely, a concept that defied easy categorization. His mind reeled, trying to process the situation. As a young woman with long blonde hair leaned in close, her voice cutting through his thoughts, she pressed him, asking what kind of girl he liked, urging him to listen. This was the Gals Squad, a vibrant group of fashionable young women, their smiles bright and their presence overwhelming. They exuded confidence and a carefree spirit, a stark contrast to Agoshi's usual world. He found himself trapped, sweat beading on his forehead, his eyes spiraling in confusion. He questioned internally why he was caught in such an unfamiliar situation, feeling completely out of his element. 2 days prior to this bewildering encounter, life had proceeded as normal. The school building standing quietly under the sky, its windows reflecting the mundane rhythm of daily life. On that day, Kitazawa had approached Egoshir, asking if he was free that Sunday. Egoshir, surprised but agreeable, confirmed his availability. Kitazawa then explained that some of his buddies were interested in meeting him and wanted to hang out. A glimmer of hope sparked in Egoshi's eyes. He wondered if this was a dream, resolving that he would definitely go. Now, on the appointed Sunday, the buddies Kitazawa had mentioned were revealed to be the very group of gals who now waved enthusiastically, calling out Kitazawa's name as they waited. The girls immediately surrounded Egoshir, showering him with compliments. One remarked on his height, another found his face quite cute, and a third exclaimed that he was even more handsome in person than in his photos. As a bowling ball crashed into the pins, sending them clattering, a stark realization dawned on Egoshir. By buddies, Kitazawa had meant these girls. His initial excitement twisted into a new form of apprehension. But he found himself surrounded by the very type of girls he feared the most, the energetic and fashionable gals. They cheered loudly, celebrating a strike, their enthusiasm overwhelming him as he sat stiffly, a nervous twitch in his eye. As the introductions began, one of the gals with short dark hair, Mipon, cheerfully greeted him, followed by another with long light hair, Akachami. Meanwhile, Kizawa, noticing Agoshi's pale complexion, asked if something was wrong, suggesting he seemed nervous for his first meeting with them. Kitazawa, visibly trembling, managed a nervous greeting as a confident gal with long, light hair introduced herself as Nachupa, a sophomore from Minamido High, declaring her dislike for dull guys. Egoshir, observing her, internally recognized her as an intimidating gal, a type he struggled with immensely. Nachupa then sat provocatively close to Egoshir, teasing him about being a real Eichmann, as she had heard from Egerin, a nickname she bestowed upon him. He blushed profusely, his mind racing, unable to comprehend her directness. While she playfully asked if he was acting shy, then declared his new nickname would be Kidapon. She continued her playful assault, asking if he was taken aback by her beauty, causing his heart to pound. He vehemently denied it, but she then playfully accused him of staring at her chest, leaving him utterly flustered and thinking her behavior was truly strange. Hitazawa, now equally flustered, tried to deny being a dull guy. Nachupa then showed a picture of a stunning girl on her phone, asking if she looked like a dull person. The other gals immediately praised the girl's beauty, calling her a model and remarking on her perfect, pure beauty, leaving Hitazawa in awe. Nachupa then turned her attention back to Kitazawa, leaning in close and asking if he had ever kissed his girlfriend. When he stammered that he hadn't, she offered to practice with him, causing him to recoil in shock and fall backward, completely overwhelmed by her boldness. Kitazawa, utterly exhausted and red-faced from the relentless teasing, admitted he was terrible with gals. Nachupa, however, merely laughed, assuring him they were just playing and that he looked incredibly funny. Nachupa then adopted a more serious tone, advising Egoshir to act more boldly and Kitazawa to be more assertive, emphasizing the importance of taking initiative in love. Egoshir watched, amazed by her confidence, as Nachupa smiled brightly, making a peace sign and declaring that she loved them all equally, leaving him speechless. Nachupa, ever the instigator, suggested they all go to Egoshi's house, prompting a chorus of excited agreement from the other girls. She then proposed they buy snacks for their gathering. Egoshi, seemingly unfazed by the attention, stood amidst the lively group, while Kitazawa, looking somewhat overwhelmed, was also drawn into the conversation. The girls continued to tease Kitazawa, asking for more details about his girlfriend. The bustling street around them was filled with people, some of whom wondered if a special event was taking place or if important figures were present. Suddenly, a familiar voice cut through the chatter, drawing everyone's attention to a stage where a young woman with dark hair, holding a microphone, was speaking. The crowd erupted in recognition, exclaiming that it was Inomoto, the famous genius high school tennis player they had seen on TV. As Inomoto graciously accepted compliments on her performance at the national tournament, a mother asked if her daughter could take a picture with her, and others quickly joined in, requesting autographs and photos. Meanwhile, in the crowd, Egosher and Kitazawa stood with the other girls, one of whom recalled that Egosher, or Egerin as they called him, had also played tennis before. From the stage, Inomoto's gaze swept over the crowd, her eyes widening in surprise as she spotted Egosher. A blush crept onto her cheeks as she recognized him, a long-lost acquaintance. The girls around Egosher gasped in astonishment, realizing he knew such a prominent figure. Moments later, Inomoto descended from the stage and approached Egosher, her sandals making soft sounds on the pavement. She greeted him warmly, asking how he had been and if he was still playing tennis. The girls surrounding Egosher were utterly shocked, exclaiming in disbelief that he was friends with Egerin. Inomoto explained that they had enrolled in the same tennis school years ago, and Chupa, with a soft smile and a slight blush, replied that she had stopped playing tennis. She explained that she had been busy with other things, hinting at a shift in her priority. Inomoto listened intently, her eyes wide and a faint blush on her cheeks, as she processed Nachupa's revelation. A staff member then discreetly signaled Inomoto, reminding her it was time to conclude her remarks. She acknowledged the cue, thanked everyone for attending, and expressed her intention to cherish the memories of the event. Inomoto then made a grand announcement. She would be leaving for America tomorrow to study abroad. She vowed to return as an even stronger player and asked for their continued support. The crowd erupted in cheers and exclamations of awe, marveling at her ambition to study abroad and potentially play at Wimbledon. Meanwhile, Nachupa playfully teased Egosher, remarking that he had a famous friend. Karumi-chan, another girl in the group, also expressed her support for Inomoto. As the group finally arrived at their destination, Egoshi's jaw dropped in utter astonishment. Before them stood a massive, imposing mansion, far grander than anything he had anticipated. Egosher and the girls stepped into the surprisingly grand mansion, their eyes wide with wonder. A tall, long-haired man greeted them, offering a polite apology for his presence, as if he were the intruder in his own home. He found himself overwhelmed by the sheer size and comfort of the residence, a stark contrast to his own modest home. Akachami, however, was already at ease, declaring the house incredibly big and cozy and inviting everyone to make themselves at home. Egoshi's mind reeled at the thought of playing games in a friend's room within such a lavish setting. A dream come true. Meanwhile, Inomoto, holding a tennis racket, stood beside Akachami, both gazing at a framed photograph. The image depicted a group of children and adults, all in tennis attire, posing together on a court, a clear memory of a shared past. She confirmed that the photo was indeed from their old tennis school, and the girl in the picture was her. Akachami, with a knowing look, then inquired if the person standing prominently in the middle of the group was Egosher. Akachami then reflected on Inomoto's remarkable talent, acknowledging her as truly amazing. Despite being only a year apart in age, Akachami felt as though Inomoto inhabited a completely different world, especially with her impending departure to America for studies. As Egosher stood, still processing the revelations, Akachami turned to him, her expression serious, and asked directly if he still harbored feelings for Inomoto. Ego Shiken stands in a doorway holding a drink as a voice from behind him questions if he still harbors feelings for someone. He smiles, confirming his enduring affection, and asks how his companion managed to deduce his secret, gesturing towards a photograph of a young woman playing tennis. A blonde woman, her cheeks flushing, expresses surprise that Ego Shiken had managed to uncover her hidden emotions. Another girl stands discreetly behind her, observing the exchange. She recounts being introduced to tennis school in the 2nd grade, a moment that marked her instant and profound affection for Kurumi-chan. Driven by this admiration, she dedicated herself to the sport, striving relentlessly to become a professional and close the gap between their skill levels. During a pivotal middle school match, with the title of the prefecture's top player hanging in the balance, she made a heartfelt proposal to Kurumi-chan. If she won, she wished for them to begin a romantic relationship. Kurumi-chan's face flushed with surprise at the unexpected confession. However, during that very match, she suffered a severe ligament injury in her ankle, an incident that tragically forced her to abandon tennis entirely. She had attempted to move past her feelings for Kurumi-chan, but Ego Shiken had seen through her attempts to hide her true emotions. She now plays with other girls, but the depth of her past affection remains a poignant memory. Upon encountering Kurumi-chan again after such a long time, her old feelings resurfaced with an undeniable force, making her realize she had no choice but to finally let go, believing Kurumi-chan was destined for a brilliant future on her own. Egoshiken, meanwhile, had been preparing to ask a simple question about her continued enjoyment of tennis, completely taken aback by the profound and unexpected confession. Egoshiken stands in stunned silence. The blonde woman reflects on her decision to stop playing tennis, acknowledging that while she initially perceived Egoshiken as distant and aloof, he was, in fact, an incredibly sincere and carefree individual. She is now surrounded by a group of her female friends. Ego Shiken stammers, caught completely off guard. One of the blonde woman's friends, the wavy blonde woman, confronts him directly, demanding to know what he meant by his actions and sharply calling him dull. The blonde woman herself, visibly distressed, questions if he truly intends to keep his feelings to himself, especially with the shocking revelation that Kurumi-chan is preparing to move to America. The following day, Ego Shiken sat slumped in his chair, staring blankly ahead, seemingly lost in thought. The blonde woman, observing his unusual behavior, wondered what was wrong. Noting his strange demeanor, still lost in his thoughts, he was suddenly pulled from his seat by a boisterous group of girls, including the wavy blonde woman who called out his nickname with urgency. They continued to drag him, urging him to confess his feelings to Kurumi-chan before her departure, which they knew from her social media was scheduled for 4 p.m. He hesitated, thinking that Kurumi-chan was preoccupied with studying and wouldn't care about his feelings. But his friends insisted he clear his mind and go for her. As the car sped away, the blonde woman leaned in, winking, and told him he had to speak up and express his feelings. She questioned if he was using telepathy to know Kurumi-chan's thoughts, while the driver was urged to step on the gas. The car screeched to a halt and the girls immediately dashed out, shouting for him to hurry, reminding him they only had 30 minutes left before Kurumi-chan was gone. He tried to keep pace, but his leg gave out, sending him tumbling to the ground. The blonde woman looked back, concerned as he struggled, lamenting that his leg wouldn't move. As he lay there, a flood of memories overwhelmed him. His old injuries, his past in tennis, and the moment he had given everything up. He questioned why these painful recollections surfaced at such a critical moment, especially those concerning Kurumi-chan. His friends quickly reached him, helping him to his feet. The blonde woman expressed relief that he was all right, while he, still recovering, noticed a familiar figure in the distance, calling out to him. The figure approached, revealing himself to be Kitazawa, who triumphantly declared his arrival, holding a tennis racket. He explained he had rushed there after hearing from the Chupasan, wanting to cheer for Egoshiken. Egoshiken, surprised by his friend's appearance and his tennis gear, questioned his presence and his racket. Kitazawa then hoisted Egoshiken onto his back, declaring it was his turn to be Egoshiken's leg and push him forward. In the background, Kurumi-chan, dressed in traditional attire, bid farewell to her parents, who urged her to take care of herself as she prepared to depart. As Ego Shiken was being carried towards her, Kurumi-chan found her thoughts drifting back to a pivotal moment. She remembered him, kneeling before her, his heart pounding, as he declared his desire not to be a dull guy. His friends, including Kitazawa, Blonde Woman 1, and Wavy Blonde Woman 1 had watched from a distance. Kurumi-chan, in her tennis attire, had looked down at him, her expression unreadable. In the present, her parents, a man with glasses and a woman with short dark hair, watched her with pride, unaware of the internal turmoil. Meanwhile, Ego Shiken's friends continued to urge him forward. Kirizawa, carrying him, shouted encouragement, reminding him to be bold and not fear failure, to speak before giving up. Kurumi-chan, still saying her goodbyes to her parents, glanced back, a flicker of emotion crossing her face as she recalled Ego Shiken's past words. I've always looked up to you, Kurumi-chan. Even now, it's all because I wanted to get close to Kurumi-chan. As his friends continued to cheer him on, Ego Shiken, still carried by Kitazawa, finally managed to stammer out his confession to Kurumi-chan. His face flushed, he declared, I have always liked you, Kurumi-chan. She stood before him, holding her tennis racket, her own cheeks tinged with a blush, her gaze fixed on him. Her expression then shifted to one of fierce determination, as if recalling another memory. She remembered a time when she had declared her intention to smash the ball, a moment that had inspired Igor Shiken. His friends, including Kirizawa, Blonde Woman 1, and Wavy Blonde Woman 1, had been present along with her parents. They had discussed how Igor Shiken would start playing tennis again, and how taking initiative in love was important. A new girl with glasses, watched the group, seemingly misunderstanding the situation. With a knowing wink and a bright smile, Kurumi-chan responded to Ego Shiken's confession, her words implying a positive reception. Meanwhile, Kitazawa, who had carried Ego Shiken, found himself surrounded by other girls, including Blonde Woman 1 and Wavy Blonde Woman 1, who praised him and asked him to carry them too, much to his embarrassment. Ayam, still observing, wondered if Kitazawa had become a playboy. The grand entrance to a temple stood majestically, its traditional architecture framed by lush trees. Students and visitors alike ascended the wide stone steps, their figures small against the imposing structure, hinting at a day of exploration and cultural immersion. As people moved through the temple grounds, two young women paused, their attention drawn to a particular pair. One, with short dark hair, exclaimed to her blonde companion, "Hey, look at those guys!" Her friend, with short blonde hair, agreed, pointing out a very handsome man and a beautiful girl. The focus shifted to the group they observed, revealing Kitazawa at the center, surrounded by his peers. Ayam stood gracefully beside him in a floral dress, while Blonde Woman 1 captured a selfie, her short blonde hair styled with a headband. An orange-haired male crouched nearby, and another short dark-haired girl stood behind Kitazawa, completing the ensemble of top boys and queen bees in a class. Among them, Ayam, her cheeks flushed, harbored a secret hope. She thought to herself that this was the day she had been waiting for, the perfect opportunity, believing she would absolutely be with Kitazawa-kuin. Meanwhile, a surprising development was stirring up a storm, leading to the Kamakura excursion, as another short, dark-haired girl crouched, examining items in a shot. 2 days prior, a female teacher addressed her class, writing Kamakura excursion on the blackboard. She announced that the Saturday, the second-year students would embark on a day trip to Kamakura, instructing everyone to divide into groups as decided last time and to arrange their schedules accordingly. In the classroom, students discussed the upcoming trip. Blonde Woman 1 sat casually on a desk, while Kitazawa leaned back in his chair. I am seated nearby, wondered aloud what there was to do in Kamakura. While another student, long dark-haired girl 1, could only think of the great Buddha statue. Egosher sat alone at the far end. As Ayam and Kitazawa reviewed a pamphlet, she suggested he decide the patrol route. Meanwhile, Egosher, along with Higuchi, Shiratori, and Anakawa, raised their hands, with Igosher apologizing for being impudent but indicating his desire to. Kitazawa, blushing slightly, then raised his hand, asking if he could decide the route. Blonde Woman 1, observing from her perch on the desk, seemed to approve, while Ayam, looking at her pamphlet, was secretly thrilled by his initiative. Later, at a train station, Blonde Woman 1 gently touched Kitazawa's face, her expression determined. She declared internally that if she didn't do something, someone might take him from her. She felt that she and Kitazawa-kun had been slowly growing apart and needed to make her appeal again, adding that this would be their mutual secret. Ayam watched them from a distance, her expression unreadable. Still vying for Kitazawa's attention, Blonde Woman 1 engaged him in conversation, while Ayam, dressed in a bold floral sundress she would normally never wear, hoped he would notice her. She felt a blush creep up her neck, aware of her unusual attire for the Kamakura excursion, as Igosher also observed the scene. While Ayam pondered her attire, Kitazawa enthusiastically explained the Kamakura tour, detailing how they would visit the famous Tsurugaka Hachiman Shrine, the guardian deity of Kamakura Prefecture, and other nationally designated cultural sites, including the Tsutsukusha hydrangea. Still seeking his approval, she then asked Kitazawa about her dress, hoping for his opinion. He, however, remained engrossed in discussing Kamakura's history, revealing his deep knowledge of the Yurtomo era and expressing a desire to conquer Kamakura's history in a single day. Other students, including Blonde Woman 1, Kurumi, and Wavy Blonde Woman, observed, noting his history nerd tendencies, a trait he had displayed since the first day of school. Unaware of the others' observations, he then suggested they go for a stroll in Kamakura. His attention then shifted to Ayam, and he bluntly asked if her somewhat revealing dress was appropriate for the outing, causing her to freeze in shock. Despite her shock, the group soon arrived at the grand Tsurugaka Hachiman Shrine. Kurumi and Wavy Blonde Woman suggested they make a wish to the gods for better tennis skills, and Ayam, along with others, joined them in prayer. As she prayed, Kitazawa stood beside her, also with clasped hands. Ayam secretly wished for them to become a real couple, her thoughts hidden from him. Moments later, he leaned in, asking her what she had wished for. She blushed, trying to evade the question, but he playfully suggested she wished to be with him, or something similar, making her even more flustered. Still flustered, she attempted to explain that a shrine was for making vows, not asking for favors. Kitazawa, however, interrupted her, emphatically stating that a shrine was a place to make a vow to God, not to ask for something to be fulfilled, implying her wish was inappropriate and her understanding flawed. Still reeling from the previous encounter, Ayam walked with her friends through the temple grounds. One of them pointed out a charming bunny statue, while another remarked on the temple's serene atmosphere, suggesting they explore a nearby building. As they continued their stroll, Ayam walked beside Kitazawa, who was deeply absorbed in his guidebook. He smiled, noting that they were visiting good places. She looked at him, a gentle smile on her face, and observed that he seemed happy. She watched her friends move ahead towards another building, a thought forming in her mind. Perhaps this was her chance. She imagined how much better it would be if it were just her and Kitazawa. Unaware of her internal musings, he cheerfully declared his happiness at being there with everyone. Their walk continued, and she felt a blush creep onto her cheeks, her expression flustered. He, however, remained oblivious, still engrossed in his guidebook and smiling broadly. Suddenly their hands brushed, a fleeting touch that made both of them gasp, their eyes widening in surprise at the unexpected contact. He quickly pulled his hand away, startled, and stammered her name. She, in turn, blushed furiously, her gaze fixed on him, flustered. She questioned his actions, asking what he was doing. He, equally shocked, exclaimed, "Don't tell me a kiss." Then, in a sudden shift, he pointed to a nearby flower, loudly declaring its beauty, attempting to divert the awkward moment. She turned away, her embarrassment palpable, while he, still flustered, continued his enthusiastic deflection, pointing at a bush of azaleas and marveling at their beauty and the multitude of colors they displayed. He then asked her if she found the temple beautiful, mentioning its alternate name, the Azalea Temple. She responded with a bewildered, "Ha!" as he launched into a detailed explanation, stating that the temple boasted approximately 20,000 azalea plants of various species, alongside other flowers like lotus maples. As he continued his lecture, detailing the temple's history as a flower temple existing since the Heian period, she looked down, calling out his name, her frustration evident. She, still frustrated by Kitazawa's relentless lecture about the temple's historical significance, tried to redirect his attention. She declared her disinterest in the facts and urged him to talk to her more personally, even suggesting they simply hold hands. He, however, remained engrossed in his phone, seemingly oblivious to her emotional plea. Her internal thoughts revealed a deep sadness, acknowledging that their relationship was merely a pretense, yet she still longed for them to truly be together. Still, she couldn't help but cry, her face contorted in sorrow as she acknowledged the unreality of their bond. Kitazawa, kneeling nearby, seemed to be observing her distress, though his expression remained unreadable. Her tears flowed freely, and she cried out in frustration, calling Kitazawa an idiot for his utter obliviousness. He reacted with wide-eyed shock, finally seeming to register the depth of her emotional outburst. Meanwhile, two other students observed the unfolding drama from a distance, wondering why Ayam and Kitazawa were panicking. They speculated that the pair were probably just flirting, completely misinterpreting the intense emotional exchange. Ayam and Kitazawa stood side by side, both with serious, almost stern expressions. Their arms crossed, a clear tension now palpable between them. The two observing students, however, were utterly bewildered, questioning if Ayam and Kitazawa were actually fighting. As the group continued their outing, Kitazawa and Ayam walked together, a noticeable tension between them. Ayam appeared distant and upset, prompting Ego Shiken to ask what was wrong. She curtly replied that it was nothing in particular, though Kitazawa internally speculated that she was angry about something. The other friends observed the awkward exchange, wondering what had transpired. The day's events were unfolding under the title of Chapter 12, 6 Boys and Girls at Kamakura. Suddenly, both Kitazawa and Ayam reacted with wide-eyed surprise to an unseen development. Ayam's thoughts raced, perceiving the situation as a potential opportunity. Moments later, as the group walked along a tree-lined path, Kitazawa questioned Ayam about her earlier remark, asking what she meant by opportunity. She seemed flustered by his directness, her expression a mix of surprise and embarrassment. Ayam, still flustered, then turned her attention to Shiratori, reminding him of his tennis match with Inakawa and his promise to break up with her if he won. Shiratori, equally flustered, recalled a past incident where he had been undressed with Kitazawa on a rooftop. A sudden understanding passed between Kitazawa and Shiratori, and they clasped hands, realizing they shared the same objective. As Kitazawa continued walking with Ayam, he pondered her apparent disinterest in him, noting her greater enthusiasm for history. Ayam, meanwhile, was internally frustrated, feeling that Kitazawa was more interested in historical facts than in her. Kitazawa, oblivious to her thoughts, simply wondered what was troubling her. Attempting to lighten the mood, Kitazawa offered Ayam a soft-serve ice cream topped with marshmallows, suggesting they eat it together. Ayam's eyes lit up with delight at the sight of the delicious treat, but she quickly declined, citing concerns about gaining weight. She then resolved internally not to lose to Kitazawa, while the other girls in the group also ate the tempting dessert. Despite her refusal, Ayam leaned in close to Kitazawa, her finger gently touching his cheek as she pointed out a smudge of cream there. The intimate gesture shocked the observing girls. Ayam, realizing the boldness of her action, quickly pulled back, stammering in apology. Kitazawa was left flustered, his face flushed. Ayam, now furious, demanded that Ayam move, accusing her of having the nerve to lick cream off his cheek. Later, Shiratori approached Kitazawa and Ayam, offering them fancy dango and suggesting they eat it together. Kitazawa, accepting the dango, mused that Shiratori had not given up on his pursuit of Ayam. Ayam, meanwhile, expressed a desire to take a selfie with Shiratori, who saw this as an opening to shorten the distance between them. Kitazawa seemed surprised by the selfie request. Ayam then turned to him, asking him to tell her more about Kamakura's history, a request that surprised Shiratori. With a bright smile, Ayam and Kitazawa posed together, holding their dango as they took a selfie. She gasped, her hands flying to her face, as she witnessed Kitazawa and Miko walking ahead, their hands intertwined. Shiratori, noticing her distress, urged her to hurry before they got lost, while Kitazawa, oblivious, enthusiastically declared his excitement for the next spot. Genjiyama Park, home to Minamoto Yoritomo's statue. The group continued their stroll through the bustling Kamuchi Street, Kitazawa leading the way with a map in hand, still holding Miko's hand, while Shiratori and IM followed behind. Meanwhile, from a distance, Higuchi and Inakawa observed the unfolding dynamics. Inakawa wondered aloud if Kitazawa and Ayam were engaged in some kind of romantic showdown, while Higuchi found the situation interesting enough to simply watch for now. As they arrived at Genjiyama Park, Kitazawa pointed towards the impressive statue of Minamoto Yoritomo, suggesting they take a closer look. IM, walking beside him, agreed, noting how refreshing the air felt. She reflected on her earlier outburst, realizing she had gotten upset with Kitazawa despite his genuine enjoyment of history. She resolved to apologize to him later, but then, seeing the bumpy path ahead, she feigned a stumble, crying out that she might fall, hoping to prompt him to hold her hand. Moments later, Miko, with a playful smile, leaned into Kitazawa, asking if she could rely on him, her touch causing him to blush. "I am witnessing this?" internally questioned Miko's brazen flirtatiousness, while Shiratori simply observed the scene. As the group continued their walk, Shiratori, perhaps sensing the tension, firmly grasped Ayam's hand, declaring they should hold hands even tighter lest she slip on a banana peel. Ayam, flustered, exclaimed in surprise. While Higuchi and Anakawa walked ahead, Higuchi politely declining an offer to hold hands, stating he was fine. Later, Kitazawa and Ayam sat together on a park bench, sharing dango and conversing, seemingly at ease. In the background, Shiratori, Miko, Higuchi, and Inakawa were also seen relaxing nearby. His gaze, however, betrayed a deeper concern as he pondered the implications of Ayam getting along so well with Shiratori, dismissing any suspicion others might have about their own relationship. But then, a realization dawned on him. Ayam's earlier anger might have stemmed from his own zealousness in talking about history, and he regretted not listening more closely to what she had wanted to say. He, still reeling from the previous day's events, declared to the group that he would go ahead to the great Buddha statue by himself, suggesting they could follow after resting. His friends, including Ayam and Miko, looked on with surprise and concern, prompting him to quickly retract his statement and agree that they should all rest and go together, as there was still plenty of time. Despite his earlier declaration, he soon found himself alone at the Kamakura Daibatsu, marveling at its impressive scale. As he stood before the colossal statue, a sense of regret washed over him, and he pondered how he might apologize to Ayam for his earlier behavior. As he contemplated his apology, a familiar, cheerful voice called out his nickname. Miko, with a bright smile, appeared before him, declaring that she had come specifically to see the Daibatsu, much to his astonishment. She explained that she lived nearby, and had messaged him earlier about her plans to visit Kamakura, playfully chiding him for not checking his messages. Miko then teased him about his intense focus on the Daibatsu, suggesting that if he saw it every day, he wouldn't feel the same excitement. Meanwhile, Ayam and the rest of the group were still making their way, with Ayam lost in thought, wondering if an apology to Kitazawa would mend their strained relationship. She questioned whether he was truly waiting for them, unaware of the unexpected reunion unfolding ahead. As they drew closer, Ayam spotted Kitazawa and Miko together. Her eyes widened in surprise as she called out to him, while Miko, noticing the approaching group, pointed them out with a casual gesture. Ayam's shock was palpable as she recognized Miko, the girl from their previous encounter. Miko, however, greeted Ayam with an overly enthusiastic and familiar tone, having heard about her from Kitazawa, further intensifying Ayam's bewildered reaction. Ayam blushed deeply as her friends showered her with compliments, remarking on her small face and long eyelashes. Nearby, other girls excitedly discussed Kitazawa, calling him manly after a bowling outing. They introduced a new girl, Nachupa, as Kitapan's friend, noting her cheerful demeanor. Her mind raced, and Ayam found herself imagining Kitazawa and Nachupa in a romantic embrace. A shirtless Kitazawa holding the bikini-clad Nachupa close. The vivid fantasy caused her face to flush even deeper, a testament to her inexperience in matters of romance. Moments later, Nachupa, with her characteristic cheerfulness, embraced two other girls, offering to guide them. Kitazawa watched the scene unfold with a slight frown, while Ayam and another girl covered their faces in embarrassment, letting out a small cry. The group had arrived at a scenic overlook in Kamakura, ready to explore. Kitazawa pointed out something in the distance, while Nachupa smiled brightly, and Ayam observed the surroundings. Their journey led them to the majestic Hesadera temple, its traditional architecture and serene grounds welcoming them. Inside the temple, the students gathered before the famous 11-faced Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva statue. Nachupa, well informed, explained that it was one of Japan's largest wooden structures, carved from a single log and standing over 9 meters tall, urging everyone to appreciate its immense size. She continued to share her knowledge, explaining that she had heard these facts many times from her father, as it was her hometown. Ayam listened intently, impressed by Nachupa's detailed understanding. Nachupa further elaborated on the statue's history, recounting how the original Kannon statue had been cast into the ocean and later found its way to Miura Prefecture, guided by oysters. Kitazawa seemed captivated by her explanation, and Ayam couldn't help but notice their easy report. A wave of insecurity washed over Ayam as she pondered the implications of their interaction. Could it be that Kitazawa preferred cheerful girls like Nachupa? She was more interesting, and she could even discuss history with him, a connection Ayam felt she lacked. As Ayam suggested they write some Emma, her internal turmoil continued. She imagined Kitazawa and Nachupa sharing a kiss, a painful vision that solidified her fear that if things continued this way, she might lose her chance with him. She worried that her stubborn nature made her boring, while an easygoing girl like Nachupa seemed more suited to be his wife. Ayam, still reeling from her internal turmoil, found herself startled by Kitazawa's presence. The group, meanwhile, continued their outing, with someone remarking on Nachupa's excellent pace. A powerful sense of rivalry began to brew within Ayam. Her cheeks flushed with a mix of embarrassment and anxiety. She silently questioned the nature of Kitazawa's relationship with Nachupa, her mind racing with possibilities. Nachupa glanced back with a cheerful smile, while Kitazawa, caught off guard by Ayam's intense gaze, could only manage a surprised sound. As they ascended a long flight of stairs, Ayam pressed him further, her voice laced with suspicion. She recalled that he and Nachupa had gone bowling together and seemed to get along remarkably well, demanding to know what else they had done. He attempted to explain, stating that their trip to the airport was a Goshi's secret, and thus he couldn't discuss it. He believed she would understand if he could explain everything, but his hands were tied. Ayam's frustration boiled over. She cried out, demanding to know why he wouldn't tell her, convinced they had done something he couldn't speak of. Kitazawa, flustered, tried to dismiss her concerns, insisting it was nothing significant. He reiterated that what he did with Nachupa was a secret he couldn't divulge. Her mind spiraled, interpreting his secrecy as confirmation of her worst fears. He truly liked Nachupa, and he was keeping it a secret to protect their budding relationship. Tears welled in her eyes as she looked away, believing her suspicions were confirmed. Kitazawa, witnessing her distress, was bewildered, wondering if she had somehow discovered Agochi's secret. Still consumed by her misinterpretation, she pondered if Kitazawa had confessed his feelings to Nachupa, and if she had heard about it from Higuchi. Kitazawa, with a wide, relieved smile, finally clarified the situation, exclaiming that Egosher had confessed his feelings to Inomoto-san, revealing the true nature of the secret he had been keeping. He confirmed his confession to Nachupa, emphasizing the immense courage it took to express his feelings in front of the one he liked. He then implored her not to reveal this to anyone. Ayam, observing from a distance, wondered about Nachupa's response. Moments later, Ayam, now with Nachupa, was overcome with emotion, exclaiming how beautiful and blissful it was that the confession had gone well. Nachupa, however, clarified that it was Inomoto-san who also felt the same way about Ego Shiken when he played tennis. Ayam remained visibly distressed, her face flushed with a mix of confusion and embarrassment. Kizawa, nearby, commented on the great story of Japan and America's hearts connecting despite the distance. Still teary-eyed, Ayam assured him she was all right. Meanwhile, the group enjoyed their trip to Kamakura. Two girls paused to take a selfie, while Ayam and Nachupa rode in a rickshaw, pulled by a cheerful driver. Kitazawa, also present, apologized to someone, perhaps the driver, for a sudden departure. As they continued their ride, Nachupa noticed Ayam's persistent distress, asking if something was still wrong. Ayam was clearly upset, tears welling in her eyes. Still crying, Ayam revealed the source of her anxiety. She had heard that Kitazawa had confessed to Nachupa. Nachupa looked utterly surprised and confused by this misunderstanding. The rickshaw driver, overhearing the conversation, burst into hearty laughter, asking if Ayam truly believed that Kitazawa had confessed to her. Ayam, flustered, tried to explain her confusion. Nachupa clarified that the one who confessed was Agri Igoshikin, and the confession was not about them. She added that Ayam was so pure to get so worked up over such a misunderstanding. Ayam admitted her anxiety stemmed from how well Nachupa and Kitazawa seemed to get along. With a knowing smile, Nachupa observed that I am sure likes Kitazawa-kun a lot. Ayam blushed deeply at the direct statement, while Nachupa mused aloud, wondering if Kitazawa was really that good, though she acknowledged he was handsome. Kitazawa, looking utterly bewildered, internally questioned Nachupa's assessment, wondering if he was fidgety all the time and lamenting that he didn't even remember looking her in the eyes. Ayam, still reeling from the recent emotional revelations, found herself being told she was honest and cute. She internally acknowledged that Kitazawa was indeed cool when the situation demanded it, but outwardly, she vehemently denied the implications, her face flushing with embarrassment. As Ayam struggled with her flustered denial, Nachupa, with a mischievous grin, proposed a bold challenge, a match with Kitazawa as the prize. She declared that if she won, Kitazawa would be hers, admitting that even she had become quite intrigued by him. Ayam's eyes widened in utter shock and disbelief, her mind racing as she questioned if Nachupa could truly be serious about such a proposition. Meanwhile, completely oblivious to the romantic drama unfolding, Kitazawa leisurely enjoyed a rickshaw ride through Kamakura, his guide remarking on his cheerful demeanor. Despite the absurdity, Ayam's resolve hardened. She knew she could not afford to lose. A new girl with long, dark hair, who had unexpectedly appeared during the field trip, challenged Igoshikin to a match. She declared her intention for a fair and square fight, much to Igoshikin's surprise. Meanwhile, the field trip continued to be enjoyable for everyone, including Ayam and Kurumi. As the challenge was set, the blonde woman, Nachupa, leaned in close to the new girl, proposing an alternative competition. She suggested that the first one to kiss Kitapan would be declared the winner, a proposition that left the long-haired girl wide-eyed and visibly shocked. The group soon found themselves at Yugahama Beach, where Nachupa, with arms outstretched, exuberantly declared her love for the sea. She suggested they at least walk along the shore, a sentiment shared by Kirizawa, Ayam, Kurumi, and the long-haired girl, though Igoshi Ken shivered, finding the water quite cold. Still feeling the chill, Kitazawa was then called by Ayam and Nachupa, who invited him to join them. He responded with a hesitant sound, appearing somewhat flustered by the invitation. The long-haired girl, still reeling from Nachupa's earlier proposition, blushed deeply. She vehemently declared that there was absolutely no way she could participate in such a challenge, especially one involving a kiss. Turning to the blonde woman, she then questioned why the two of them weren't dating, given their apparent closeness. A blonde woman, upon hearing the long-haired girl's question, had a sudden realization. If the two hadn't kissed yet, it presented an opportunity for her. She then called out to Nachupa and Ayam, suggesting they all play together. Nachupa, with a wide, confident grin, boldly declared her intention to claim Kitapan's first kiss. The long-haired girl gasped in shock, while Ayam found her innocent reaction incredibly pure and cute. Nachupa then dashed away, leaving the long-haired girl completely flustered. Igor Shikin, now thoroughly soaked, laughed heartily at the unfolding chaos, finding the entire situation amusing. He conceded that Kitapan certainly looked good, but pondered whether he was genuinely serious or simply naive. Meanwhile, Kitazawa, also wet, attempted to stop Nachupa, who was playfully splashing water. Still laughing and wiping his glasses, Ego Shikin heard Nachupa's voice and, in a moment of playful bewilderment, questioned his own identity amidst the chaotic fun. He, still in the water, called out to Kitazawa-kun, urging him to join the others. Kitazawa-kun, however, hesitated, admitting his discomfort with water. Ayam-chan, standing nearby, questioned why he wouldn't go in. Meanwhile, the other students, including Mei-chi, were already splashing and calling for Kitapan to lend them a hand. As the group continued their playful antics, Nachupa, with a mischievous glint in her eye, leaned in close to Kitazawa, urging him to look her way. The sudden intimacy caused him to blush deeply, while the other students watched with a mix of surprise and excitement, some gasping at the unexpected closeness. Moments later, a large wave crashed over the group, sending many of them tumbling into the water. Kitazawa, still on the edge, managed to stay upright, but Nachupa, who had been close to him, was now covered in sand. He offered a polite, if flustered, thank you as she brushed herself off. Despite the chaos, Kitazawa-kun was encouraged by his friends, including Agoshikin and Kurumi, to join them and enjoy the sea, reminding him that his guidebook might get wet. He felt a sense of relief, wondering if he had overdone his earlier hesitation. Ayam-chan, observing him, pondered if her unconscious desire to meet Kitapan had led her back to come. Nachupa, still smiling, then turned to Kitazawa, asking him what he thought of her. He stammered, unsure how to respond, while she mused that she would have to confirm her own feelings. Ayam-chan and Ego Shikin watched the exchange, with Ego Shikin wondering if Kitazawa saw her as merely a friend or something more. Suddenly, Ego Shikin cried out a warning, pointing towards the sea as a massive wave began to approach Nachupa. He frantically urged her to come to him, his voice filled with urgency, as Kitazawa seemed momentarily frozen, unable to process the impending danger. Ego Shikin continued to shout, his concern overriding all else, even as Ayam-chan reminded him that his girlfriend was watching. He dismissed her concern, insisting that Nachupa needed to get to safety immediately. As the wave loomed, Kitazawa finally sprang into action, grabbing Nachupa to pull her away. The colossal wave crashed over them, engulfing Kitazawa and Nachupa. When the water receded, they were both soaked, Kitazawa still holding Nachupa close. He apologized, admitting he hadn't managed to get them clear in time, while she looked up at him, also drenched. Ayam-chan, observing the two, realized that Kitazawa had been trying to protect Nachupa from the wave, even if his guidebook had gotten wet in the process. She felt a pang of envy for Nachupa, thinking how cool Kitazawa had been. The three stood together, drenched but safe. Ayam-chan looked on with a thoughtful expression, while Kitazawa, still blushing, managed a small, embarrassed smile. Nachupa, her face also wet, smiled back at him, a hint of amusement in her eyes. Still wet from the wave, he stands among the group as Nachupa holds up her phone, announcing that the locals will take a photo for them. Ayam, however, looks down, embarrassed, as the others comment on the dangerous situation they were in. He and Nachupa, both still soaked, posed for the photo with the rest of the group, who are all smiling. Ayam, however, stands apart, lost in thought, reflecting on Kitazawa's kindness and how he helped Nachupa. She feels a pang of regret, realizing she didn't get a chance to apologize to him earlier. Ayam later looks at a photo on her phone, seeing Kitazawa and Nachupa together. A blush spreads across her face as she wonders if she is the one who cannot look straight into his eyes. She sits alone on the beach, her expression resolute. She reminds herself to do her best, understanding that the real challenge begins now. As the sun sets over the ocean, Ayam reflects on her feelings. She senses Kitazawa-kun drifting further away from her, lamenting that she couldn't make a move to match Nachupa-san and was merely an observer. She also regrets not having the chance to apologize to Kitazawa-kuin. But later, the male adult approaches Ayam, who is still sitting on the sand. He apologizes to her, his expression filled with regret. He then accidentally steps on something, crying out in pain. Ayam, still processing her own thoughts, realized that she had been so caught up in her own feelings, hyping herself up about the history of the area, that she hadn't considered Kitazawa's feelings or listened to anything the male adult had said. But suddenly Kitazawa appears, catching Ayam as she stumbles. Their faces are incredibly close, and a small kiss sound effect appears between them. He asks if she is all right and if her leg hurts, his hand gently resting on her leg. She replies that she is fine, thanking him. Their faces remain inches apart, both blushing intensely, as a shared thought echoes between them. Was that a kiss? She reacted with a startled gasp, realizing Nchupa had already left. Kitazawa, standing nearby, confirmed Nchupa's departure. Ayam, still processing the accidental intimacy with Kitazawa, wondered if Nchupa had witnessed their moment. Kitazawa then suggested it was time for them to head back, to which Ayam, flustered, agreed. Meanwhile, Kiho and another girl stood together, Kiho asking if her companion had witnessed something specific. The other girl confirmed she had. Later, Kirizawa proudly displayed numerous photos from Kamakura to Ayam and the male adult, asking if they wanted to see them. The male adult commented on how good the pigeon sable was. Ayam, however, was visibly annoyed, exclaiming that she did not care for photos of temples and Buddhist statues. She had been referring to photos with him. He quickly denied any such intention, insisting there was no way he would do something like that, especially since it was a school activity. Ayam, still looking at him with a mix of frustration and longing, thought to herself that he must have been flirting with her. As he continued to stammer, Ayam's thoughts drifted to the accidental contact they had shared, wondering if it truly was a kiss. She then realized that the male adult was observing Kitazawa's flushed face, commenting that he looked sunburned. Kitazawa-kuin sat at his desk, seemingly lost in thought as a female classmate approached him, collecting printouts. He smiled to himself, recalling the recent trip to Kamakura, a journey filled with so many places to visit that it couldn't have gone better. Another female student nearby found the subject difficult, but his mind was still on the fun he had. His thoughts continued to drift, grateful for the experience that had brought him closer to everyone. He remembered a fight with Ayam-san that, in the end, made them look like a real couple, and even the Chupa-san of all people had proven knowledgeable about the area. Yet the looming midterm exams tomorrow cast a shadow over his pleasant memories, a sentiment shared by another classmate who dreaded them. Suddenly, a wave of panic washed over him as the words midterm exams echoed in his mind. He had completely forgotten about them, realizing with a jolt that he hadn't studied for math at all. His worst sub. As he prepared to rush home and cram, a male student named Shiratori UCI abruptly stopped him, declaring that he needed to start cramming right away. Other classmates reacted with dismay, lamenting that Kitazawa-kun had scored a mere 3 on his math report card, with one girl emphatically stating she didn't want to be next to someone with such a low grade. Shiratori UCI then took the initiative, inviting everyone to a study group at a family restaurant for the midterm exams. The group, including Kitazawa-kun, Ayam-san, Keihu, Miko, and Igo Shida, gathered around a table laden with food, ready to tackle their studies. Keihu admitted she hadn't studied either, having been busy cheering on her idol, while Miko lamented that all her laziness had come back to bite her. Shiratori UCI ranked first in finals, confidently offered his assistance, telling everyone they needed to get a grip, and could ask him anything they didn't understand. Yagyu Ayam ranked second, also offered her help, prompting Keihu to exclaim her gratitude to the gods, Buddha, and Iyam-sama. The group agreed to the terms, no breaks until the exams, and they had better ace them to make the effort worth coming to the restaurant. Igoshita, ranked 195th, asked for Shiratori's guidance, while Kitazawa-kun, ranked 67th, counted on him. Miko, ranked 101st, grumbled that she should have been the tutor, and Keihu, ranked 125th, offered a dessert as tribute. As the study session began, Yagyu internally wished she could tutor Kitazawa-kun, but then worried if he would think she was being too clingy. Meanwhile, Kitazawa-kun and Shiratori UCI focused intently on their studies, with Shiratori explaining something to him. She diligently helped Kitazawa-kun with his studies, prompting him to internally lament that he should have ordered a cake platter to make the study session more enjoyable. He felt frustrated, realizing this was his chance to get closer to her. Yet, he was preoccupied with tutoring 2 other students. Yagyu, meanwhile, thought it best not to bother him while he concentrated. As the study session continued, Shiratori UCI, observing the group, enthusiastically suggested they try swapping seats to change things up a bit. However, Yagyu, Keihu, and Miko immediately protested, exclaiming that it was already too late for such a change, and they couldn't handle it anymore. Despite their protests, Shiratori UCI and Egoshita, with Ms. Chivas' grins, began to orchestrate the seat rearrangement, much to the confusion of some and the amusement of others. With the new seating arrangement in place, Shiratori UCI proudly announced that he had paired Yagyu and Kitazawa-kun together, declaring them lovebirds and instructing her to tutor him. Kitazawa-kun flushed with embarrassment, while Yagyu blushed deeply, clearly flustered by the sudden declaration. The other students cheered, urging Shiratori to outsmart the teacher and take the lead in tutoring the rest of them. Egoshita playfully warned Kizawa-kun not to get too excited, calling him Mr. Tutor. Yagyu, now seated beside him, composed herself and began to guide him through an equation, asking him to solve as he sat in such close proximity to Yagyu, a situation made possible by Egoshita's assistance. Kitazawa-kun found himself overwhelmed. He realized he had never been this close to her before, and her presence, her very scent, was intoxicating. He began to sweat profusely, his nervousness palpable from merely sitting next to her. The tension between them was almost tangible as their hands hovered inches apart, a silent testament to Kitazawa-kun's intense feelings. He was completely captivated by her, his mind reeling from their closeness. Shiratori UCI, observing the scene, felt a sense of satisfaction, wishing they could have a room to themselves, but still finding it quite fun to be their wingman. He then urged the other students to move, as the area was becoming crowded. Kitazawa-kun, though annoyed by the teasing, acknowledged Shiratori's cleverness and thanked him for picking up the slack, admitting he shouldn't have bothered since he felt closer to Yagyu. As the group departed the study location, Shiratori UCI and Egoshita continued to tease Kitazawa-kun, questioning if he was actually studying or merely bothering Yagyu. He vehemently denied their accusations, but Shiratori simply retorted, "Damn you, Kitazawa." The students then discussed their readiness for the upcoming exams. Yagyu expressed her concern about not feeling prepared enough, while Keihu and Miko agreed, not wanting to be called out for failing. Kitazawa-kun, however, admitted that Shiratori had a point. He had been too distracted by Yagyu to truly focus on studying equations, formulas, and numbers. He was asked if he wanted to come over, to which he replied that it sounded fun. However, another friend interjected, suggesting it might be problematic if only the boys stayed at his place. She then offered her own home, explaining that her parents were away so there would be no one to stop them from staying up late. Following this, the girls enthusiastically declared they would have a sweets party at her place instead, while the boys wondered about their study plans. Tori UCI then proposed that if the girls were having a sleepover, the boys should have one too. Kitazawa-kun agreed, exclaiming it was a great idea, while another friend suggested they could have a voice chat later, lamenting that they had to split up. The idea of a sleepover, a legendary event where friends bond, caused Tori UCI to react with wide-eyed shock, his mouth agape in disbelief. Moments later, the boys were engrossed in a video game. Shiratori UCI cheered triumphantly, declaring his victory, while Kitazawa-kun, defeated, acknowledged his friend's skill. Kitazawa-kun, frustrated by his loss, demanded a rematch, but Shiratori UCI, still focused on the game, reminded him that they could play all they wanted after finishing their studies. Shiratori UCI, however, began to weep tears of joy, explaining that he couldn't believe this was happening, as he had only ever played games alone before. Kitazawa-kun, taken aback, asked why he was crying, then conceded to the rematch before returning to their studies. His friends found his emotional outburst a bit overdramatic, though they admitted it had been fun playing with him. Shiratori UCI, still wiping tears from his eyes, confessed that he was simply so happy that he was crying, finding the sleepover incredibly enjoyable. With his emotions settled, Shiratori UCI, now radiating confidence, declared that he was an expert in national history and could answer any questions. Kitazawa-kun, struggling with math, acknowledged his friend's offer, realizing he needed help. As the night deepened, the sleepover continued, with Shiratori UCI confidently stating they would study until morning. He reminded Kitazawa-kun that he had ranked first in finals, offering to teach him the knack for memorizing all the years and eras. Kitazawa-kun, still feeling the joy of the sleepover, admitted he had a few things he wasn't sure about. Meanwhile, at the girls' sleepover, they indulged in an array of delicious desserts. Yagyu Ayam, enjoying a treat, was asked if she had eaten enough, but she insisted the desserts were too good to ignore. Suddenly, Kitazawa-kun called, and Yagyu Ayam answered, greeting him, while another friend jokingly warned him not to blame her if his exams became a laughingstock due to the distraction. She found herself surrounded by her friends, who immediately began to tease her about the call. Igoshita playfully reached for her phone, asking what she was doing, while Keihu added that Yagyu should be more open with them about her relationship. Miko, too, pressed her for details about Kitazawa-kun, asking how often they spoke and how they addressed each other. Yagyu, flustered, tried to deflect their questions, insisting it was none of their business and urging them to return to their studies. Despite her protests, her friends continued their playful interrogation. Keihu leaned in, remarking that Yagyu never seemed to talk about her boyfriend with them, suggesting she could boast more about their relationship. Miko, lying on the bed, eagerly asked if she could listen in on Yagyu's sweetest moments, inviting her to join them for a real girls' talk. Meanwhile, in another room, the boys' study session was underway, though not without its distractions. Shiratori UCI, Kitazawa-kun, Kamakura-sensei, and another male student were gathered around a table. Shiratori, feeling tired, admitted that staying up late before an exam was a bad idea, while Kitazawa-kun, despite having played games and eaten snacks, felt he had studied enough to get a perfect score. Kamakura-sensei, however, urged them to focus on studying, reminding them that a group call was already in progress. As the group call continued, Shiratori UCI wondered aloud what Ayam-san was doing at that moment. Kamakura-sensei, however, reminded them of their promise to do a voice call with the girls, suggesting it would help drive away some of their sleepiness. Kitazawa-kun, holding his phone, noticed that the girls had already started a group call without them. He hadn't noticed it at all. His friends, however, were eager to join, urging him to connect. With both groups now connected, the girls immediately turned their attention to Kitazawa-kun, playfully asking if he had ever kissed Yagyu. The question caught both Kitazawa-kun and Shiratori UCI completely off guard, leaving them stunned. Later, lying in bed, Kitazawa-kun found himself unable to sleep, his mind racing with excitement from the day's events and the girl's bold question. The previous night, Kitazawa-kun had been unable to sleep. Now, as dawn approached, the anticipation for the upcoming trip to Kamakura filled the air, promising an extra burst of energy for all involved. Meanwhile, Yagyu Iyam, nestled in her bed, also found herself wide awake, a radiant smile gracing her face as excitement bubbled within her. She clutched her tablet, her thoughts consumed by the impending journey. She realized she simply could not sleep. Overwhelmed by the sheer thrill of her upcoming trip with Kitazawa-kun, her gaze drifted, a soft question forming in her mind. Was Kitazawa-kun already asleep? A rustle of her blankets accompanied her next thought. As she pondered the etiquette of sending a message at such a late hour, wondering if it would annoy him. Then, a sudden realization struck her, causing her to exclaim in frustration. She couldn't even send him anything because she still didn't have his contact ID. Elsewhere, Nachupa-san was also wide awake, cheerfully sending chat notifications that seemed to pop endlessly, indicating she felt no sleepiness at all. Back in her room, Yaguayam, now fully resolved, declared her intention to get closer to Kitazawa-kun specifically, so she could ask for his ID. A group of girls, including Ayam, Igoshita, Keiho, Miko, and Nachupa-san, gathered in their pajamas for a lively discussion, cornering Ayam with questions about her relationship with Kitazawa-kun. They pressed her, demanding to know if she had kissed him. From a distance, Kitazawa-kun, Shiratori, and another male student observed, wondering if Ayam was being put on the spot and if the girls were growing suspicious about their relationship. Ayam, visibly flustered and blushing, found herself unable to answer as the girls continued their relentless interrogation, demanding a clear yes or no regarding the kiss. The boys watched, their concern growing with each passing moment of Ayam's distress. The girls persisted in their teasing, with Ayam now lying on the floor, overwhelmed and unable to provide a satisfactory response to their persistent questions. Meanwhile, the boys, including Kitazawa-kun, gathered at a table, discussing the situation and realizing the girls had left them in suspense. Kitazawa-kun, in particular, seemed eager to clarify that he had done nothing to warrant such an intense interrogation. Later, in a more relaxed setting, Nachupa-san enjoyed a bath, complaining about stiff shoulders, while Miko and Keiho also soaked nearby. Nachupa-san then moved to the shower, drying her long, wavy hair, as Miko playfully teased Keiho about her figure. As Ayam joined them in the bath, her moment of peace was immediately interrupted by Keiho, who playfully declared it time for Ayam's daily inspection, and began to tease her. Ayam protested, embarrassed, while the other girls commented on her figure and expressed their surprise that she and Kitazawa-kun had not yet shared a kiss. Despite the teasing, Ayam internally insisted that the incident with Kitazawa-kun at Kamakura was nothing more than an accident and could not be considered a true kiss. She reminded herself that there was no genuine romantic connection between them, as their relationship was merely a pretense of fake dating. She let out a long sigh while bathing with her friends, prompting them to ask what troubled her. Playfully, they offered to cheer her up by rubbing oil on her, one friend declaring she would continue until Ayam's breasts grew larger. Meanwhile, Kitazawa-kun found himself under intense scrutiny from his male friends, Shiratori and male student A, who pressed him for details about his relationship with Ayam. They demanded to know if he had even held her hand, leaving him flustered and unable to provide a clear answer. His friends continued their interrogation, asking if it was true that he hadn't kissed her yet. He quickly denied it, insisting that the incident at Kamakura had been a mere accident. Despite his denial, Shiratori and male student heir remarked that Kitazawa-kun, despite his reputation as a playboy, was taking his time making progress with Ayam. They concluded that both he and Ayam were quite pure and innocent. He struggled to answer their persistent questions, feeling completely stumped. His friends then directly challenged him, asking if he, as a man, truly didn't want to kiss Ai. He looked down, his expression serious, as he began to formulate his honest thoughts on the matter. With a slight frown, he confessed that, to be honest, he felt he was not a good match for her. His thoughts drifted to a younger version of himself, recalling a past vow he made. He remembered feeling uncool and not handsome, and even to this day, he didn't understand how he had ended up with her. Meanwhile, back in the present, Ayam and her friends were now in bed, still awake. Back with his friends, Kitazawa-kun looked up, his gaze firm, and declared with conviction that he would never do anything to hurt Ayam, regardless of whether their relationship was fake or real. Later that night, Keiho had already fallen asleep, exhausted from the day's activities. Ayam, Igoshida, and Miko were still awake, with her friends suggesting they could continue their discussion if Ayam wished. However, Ayam declined, stating it would be unfair to Keiho. The full moon shone brightly over the building, marking the end of the day. She, blushing, seemed touched by the sentiment as her friend Miko expressed her genuine happiness for Ayam, glad that she was now going out with Kitazawa-kun. Miko continued, recalling how distant and aloof Ayam had seemed during their first year, making her too scared to approach her back then. Ayam, still in bed with Miko, wondered if that was truly the case, while Igoshita, also in bed, added that now they were having so much fun every day. Yet, despite the joy of her friendships, Ayam found herself conflicted. She didn't want to lose her smile, but on the other hand, she still couldn't get over her feelings for Kitazawa-ku. As she pondered this, Nico suddenly asked her if she had anyone she liked. Ayam, caught off guard, let out a small cry of surprise, wondering what she was supposed to do with such a direct question. Miko, smiling knowingly, observed that Ayam also seemed to be having a tough time with her feelings. Ayam, flustered, could only manage a soft affirmation. Later, as the moon shone brightly outside, Ayam, Miko, and Igoshita lay together in bed. Ayam concluded that love and romance were truly tough, a sentiment her friends seemed to share. Meanwhile, in another room, Kitazawa-kun and his friends, Shiratori and male student A, were also in bed. Shiratori confessed that when he first got to know Kitazawa-kun, he thought he was a scumbag who would lay his hands on any girl he saw, and recently he was almost convinced he was right about him. But now, sure, Tori continued, he saw Kitazawa-kun in a new light. Admitting he hadn't realized he was thinking of Ayam-san so fondly, Kitazawa-kun, lying on his back, looked surprised and a little embarrassed by the unexpected praise. Shiratori, with a wide, approving smile, declared that he had to admit he now approved of Kitazawa-kun as a man. Kitazawa-kun, still looking somewhat flustered, could only manage a small, uncertain sound in response. He stretched, yawning, as Ayam looked at him with a determined gaze, declaring him worthy of being her rival. Meanwhile, Tori UCI remained oblivious, deeply asleep in his bed, dreaming soundly. Outside Shiratori's house, Kitazawa-kun and another male student whispered, concerned that he was still asleep despite the important day ahead. They urged him to keep his voice down, lest he wake the entire neighborhood. The next day, at school, Ayam's friends discussed their exam performance. Igoshita admitted she fell asleep halfway through but managed to avoid too many blanks thanks to their study group. Kiho felt she did pretty good, and Miko asked Ayam about her results. Shiratori, however, was utterly distraught, clutching his head in despair as he faced his abysmal exam scores. He lamented that it was his fault he couldn't nail his ultra-giga speech and had fallen asleep, declaring it was all over. Kitazawa-kun, Kamakura-sensei, and the other male student, however, looked on with satisfied smiles, having achieved good results. As everyone celebrated their scores, Kitazawa-kun turned to a blushing Ayam, telling her not to mind her results and wishing her good luck next time, a gesture that seemed to fluster her even more. A young woman with long, wavy blonde hair meticulously applied lipstick, her gaze focused and determined. As she walked through the bustling station, her steps confident in high heels, she mentally checked her appearance, makeup, clothes, everything in place. Despite her outward composure, a nervous flutter stirred within her, making her wonder why she felt so anxious. She resolved to simply act as she always did. Moments later, she spotted Kitazawa-kun, who looked visibly surprised to see her. Approaching him with a bright smile, she apologized for the wait, playfully calling him Kitapan, and then inquired about the reason for their meeting in Shibuya. He seemed flustered, mentioning that his mother always chose his clothes for him. Internally, she reflected on the persistent restlessness she had felt ever since the incident at Kamakura, a feeling that intensified whenever she thought of Kitazawa-kun. She questioned if this unease stemmed from burgeoning feelings for him, determined to find an answer that very day. She then suggested they head to Marukyu to buy some clothes, to which he hesitantly agreed. Without waiting for a full response, she enthusiastically grabbed his arm, pulling him along. He protested, admitting he knew little about girls' fashion, but she pressed on, declaring that a Jairu always moved forward. Inside the store, she tried on various outfits, including a stylish hat and striped pants, posing confidently for him. Kitazawa-kun, clearly overwhelmed, could only stammer about her beautiful legs and wonder if he was the only one enjoying this date. She then suggested they move to the next shop. As they continued their shopping, they unexpectedly encountered Miko, Keihu, and Igoshida, who were also browsing clothes. Miko, holding up a top, asked for their opinion. Recognizing each other from Kamakura, Nachupa-san cheerfully suggested they all shop together. Miko, however, was utterly shocked to see Kitazawa-kun with Nachupa-san. Her eyes widened in disbelief as she realized he was out shopping with her, exclaiming that it was unfair she got a head start. She then demanded that Kitazawa-kun pick out clothes for her too, while her friends looked on, surprised by her outburst. Miko, still reeling from the previous encounter, found herself caught in a whirlwind of excitement alongside Nachupa-san. Both girls were enthusiastically engaging Kitazawa-kun, who looked utterly overwhelmed as they spoke of something with great delight. Miko affirmed, "Yes, really?" while Nachupa-san chimed in with a playful, "Oh, really?" leaving Kitazawa-kun to weakly interject, Girls." Her excitement quickly turned to shock as Miko confronted Nachupa-san, asking if she too had fallen in love with Kitazawa-kun because of the events at Kamakura. Nachupa-san, with a determined glint in her eye, retorted that Miko would not get in her way, emphasizing the effort it took to invite Kitazawa-kun out that day. Despite Kitazawa-kun's visible distress, the two girls continued their spirited competition. Miko declared there was a specific place she absolutely had to visit with him, pulling him along. Nachupa-san, not to be outdone, quickly agreed, stating she also had a destination in mind, leaving Kitazawa-kun helplessly dragged between them. Their chosen destination was a clothing store, where Kitazawa-kun found himself kneeling on the floor, utterly overwhelmed, as Miko and Nachupa-san tried on various outfits. Miko, posing in a revealing top and skirt, asked if her choice was too bold, highlighting her larger bust. Nachupa-san, in shorts and a loose top, countered with a wink, pointing out her smaller rear but confident in her legs. The pressure mounted on Kitazawa-kun as he remained trapped between their competing displays. One of the girls leaned in, asking if he preferred breasts, while the other insisted it had to be legs. The intensity of their rivalry escalated, with both Miko and the Chupa-san leaning close to Kitazawa-kun, their faces flushed with determination. They demanded he make a choice, insisting he pick which of their outfits he preferred. Despite his attempts to appease them by saying they both looked great and admitting his lack of fashion knowledge, Kitazawa-kun was once again pulled in two directions. Miko insisted they move to the next shop, asking him to help her choose, while Nachupa-san declared it was round two and they were off to another store. Finally, a much-needed respite arrived. Kitazawa-kun sat outside a Chabwe restaurant, looking utterly exhausted but managing a small smile as he held a sandwich. He remarked that it was his first time eating there and that the food looked really good, inviting the girls to eat. Meanwhile, Miko and the Chupa-sans sat on a nearby bench, surrounded by numerous shopping bags, both looking contemplative and somewhat subdued after their intense shopping spree. As Kitazawa-kun happily munched on his sandwich, praising the crispness of the vegetables, Miko's thoughts turned serious. She acknowledged that Ayam might have a claim on Kitazawa-kun, but firmly resolved that no one else would. Nachupa-san, however, reflected on her own behavior, realizing she was acting unusually competitive and taking things far more seriously than she normally would. But as the intense competition for Kitazawa-kun's attention continued, he removed his glasses, remarking that they had fogged up. His action immediately drew the gaze of Miko and Nachupa-san, who, along with the other girls, found him unexpectedly attractive Despite the brief distraction, the rivalry quickly resumed. Miko declared they were far from finished with their outing, while Nachupa-san, perhaps sensing a lull, tentatively suggested they might go home. Miko, however, leaned in close, questioning her rival's sudden change of heart. Their efforts to transform Kitazawa-kun continued, culminating in him trying on a stylish pinstripe suit and hat. He appeared flustered by the attention but also visibly pleased, as Miko and Nachupa-san, along with the other girls, showered him with compliments and admiration for his new look. After the flurry of outfit changes, he apologized for the wait, finding Miko and Nachupa-san seated on a bench. Though they looked somewhat weary, their competitive spirit remained undimmed, with Miko remarking on Nachupa-san's persistent nature, As the group continued their outing, his attention was suddenly captured by a photo sticker booth, which he exclaimed about with surprise and excitement. The other girls, including Ayam, Igoshita, and Keihu, also noticed the booth. Their interest piqued. The sight of the photo booth immediately reignited the rivalry between Miko and Nachupa-san. Both girls exchanged intense, blushing glances, each silently contemplating the opportunity to take a picture with Kitazawa-kun. Kitazawa-kun confessed that he had always wanted to take such photos with friends, but was unsure how to use the booth. Seizing the chance, Miko and Nachupa-san eagerly offered to pay for the session and teach him the ropes, pulling him towards the entrance while the other girls watched. Inside the booth, the competition for closeness began. Nachupa-san instructed Kitazawa-kun to link arms and make a peace sign for the camera. Not to be outdone, Miko quickly interjected, suggesting they cling to each other to demonstrate their profound closeness, leaving Kitazawa-kun flustered by their escalating demands. The girls continued their aggressive posing. Natsuba-san leaned in intimately, reminding Kitazawa-kun to focus on the camera while Miko, from behind, embraced him tightly, declaring it her usual way of posing with friends. He found himself utterly overwhelmed by their combined advances. As the resulting photo sticker captured the chaotic energy of the session, a tight close-up shot of Kitazawa-kun, Miko, and Nachupa-san, all pressed together with wide, excited smiles, a testament to the intense rivalry and affection they displayed. He found himself surrounded, the girls' reactions to the photo stickers overwhelming. Miko offered a quick apology, while others exclaimed about the amusing filters applied to his face and the unexpected video feature of the boot. Despite the excitement, Miko sighed, lamenting that she hadn't been able to discern his true feelings during the session. Nachupa-san, equally disappointed, muttered that the outing was supposed to be just for the two of them. Overwhelmed by the intensity, he suddenly declared that he needed to be home by 6 p.m. on Sundays, excusing himself from the situation. Moments later, Natsubi-san held up the freshly printed photo sticker, her gaze direct as she asked if someone wanted to exchange line IDs. Her bold request caught Miko by surprise, who wondered what was happening and if Nachupa-san was asking to be her friend. Meanwhile, Ayam-san, observing the exchange, readily agreed to the idea, stating it would be easier to send the image through a private chat. As the group dispersed, he realized with a jolt that he had forgotten to ask for a sticker, earning him a scolding from his younger sister, Hot Ape Miko, seizing the opportunity, then suggested he call her by her first name, a sentiment quickly echoed by Nachupa-san, who also invited him to use her given name. Ayam-san watched, surprised by the sudden escalation of intimacy, realizing she hadn't anticipated joining a direct competition for his affection. A basketball lay still on the court, its surface bearing the marks of countless games. Moments later, a determined young woman, her long pigtails swaying with each movement, dribbled the ball with practiced ease. She launched it towards the hoop, the ball arcing perfectly before swishing through the net. Despite her skill, sweat beaded on her brow, a testament to her intense practice. As she continued her early morning practice, other members of the basketball club arrived, greeting her with cheerful calls. Nagashi Yuno, a first-year student, acknowledged them, her focus unwavering as she dribbled the ball. Yuno, holding the ball, declared her confidence that they would secure a spot for the third-year members in the upcoming inter-high prelims. Her teammates observed her, noting her short stature but immense speed and overflowing energy, which made her a formidable player. They also remarked on the good chemistry between Yuno and Nagi, despite being the only two first years in the club. The older students expressed their satisfaction, believing they could retire knowing the club was in good hands. Okubo, however, felt a pang of sadness at the thought, while Nagi, with a smile, called for everyone to line up for a 3-man weave drill. After the intense practice, Yuno eagerly drank from her water bottle, gulping down the refreshing liquid. Meanwhile, Okubo, seemingly trying to escape, was playfully chased by another teammate, who called for her to come back. Yuno watched the scene unfold with a small laugh. Later, as Yuno knelt to tie her shoe, Okubo approached her, teasing her about her popularity with boys and suggesting she should get a boyfriend. Yuno, however, dismissed the idea, finding it too bothersome and stating that they needed to focus on the interhigh for now, as it was not the time to get sidetracked. Yuno, with a determined expression, reiterated that she would not be pursuing any relationships. Just then, Kitazawa-kun, rushing past, exclaimed that he was running late. As he hurried, a small towel slipped from his grasp, falling unnoticed. He continued his frantic dash, leaping over Yuno, who looked up in surprise as he soared above her, his towel still falling through the air. Still reeling from the unexpected leap, she watched as Kitazawa-kun, having just cleared her, dropped his towel. Another male student rushed past, exclaiming his need to hurry. Kitazawa-kun, however, remained composed, smiling as he handed Yuno her own towel, expressing relief that he had found it. Yuno, flustered by the sudden interaction, could only stammer her thanks. She clutched the towel tightly, her cheeks flushed, managing to whisper a more complete expression of gratitude. But nearby, a friend with short, light brown hair, who had witnessed the entire event, turned to Yuno, asking if she was all right and mentioning the upperclassmen. Yuno, still somewhat dazed, could only utter a confused sound. From a short distance, two other female students observed, one confirming the upperclassman's identity to the other. Yuno, however, was lost in a vivid fantasy, her mind transforming the upperclassman into the legendary basketball player James Harden, his impressive jump solidifying her admiration. She was completely smitten. Her friends tried to bring her back to reality, reminding her of her earlier declaration about not pursuing relationships. They pressed her for the upperclassman's name and club, but Yuno, still starry-eyed, could only gush about his beautiful outline and how he looked just like Harden doing a layup, albeit without the beer. Later, the school day continued, with students filling their classroom, some chatting animatedly, others quietly preparing for their next lesson. And as the day progressed, Yuno and her short-haired friend peered through a classroom door, searching intently. Her friend then pointed out that the object of their search, Kitazawa-kun, was indeed from Class 2A. Her friend confirmed it was Kitazawa-senpai, adding that rumor had it he was among the top 3 most handsome second-year students. Yuno, observing him calmly reading a book, was completely captivated, internally squealing about how incredibly cool he was. Overwhelmed by her burgeoning feelings, Yuno declared her immediate intention to confess to him. Her friend, exasperated by Yuno's impulsiveness, urged her to slow down, reminding her that she was far too easily pleased. Her friends expressed concern, noting that Yuno had never changed. She always acted the moment an idea struck her, whether in basketball or romance. Yuno, however, insisted that as a point guard, she had no time to stop and dwell, and had to act before the preliminaries. Her friends, resigned to her nature, reluctantly agreed, calling her Nage-kin. She stood among her friends, who offered a mix of encouragement and playful teasing. Nagi, with a supportive smile, assured her that she would be there to help her recover if Kitazawa-kun rejected her, reminding Yuno that rebounding is part of a center's job. Yuno, however, still harbored doubts, wondering if he would truly reject her, or if he even knew her at all. She mused that he couldn't have fallen for her at first sight, prompting her friends to remind her that the confession was hers to make, not his. Later, under a sky dotted with clouds, the school building stood silently, awaiting the unfolding drama. As the moment arrived, Nagi apologized for calling him out in such a manner. Kitazawa-kun, looking composed and slightly curious, inquired if someone was looking for him due to something he had done. Nagi then introduced herself as Mashiro Nagi from the basketball club, setting the stage for Yuno's confession. He watched as Yuno, visibly flustered and blushing deeply, struggled to articulate her words. Finally, with a burst of courage, she managed to blurt out her name, Nagashi Yuno, and that she was a first-year student. Kitazawa-kun regarded her with a serious, almost bewildered expression, his gaze intense. Yuno, in her mind, perceived his presence as overwhelmingly dazzling, like a radiant halo. Overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment, Yuno felt her breath catch in her throat. Nagi, sensing her friend's distress, urged her to find strength, acknowledging that it was indeed too early for a confession. Yet, Yuno, resolute, insisted that giving up now would mean the end of the match, as Kitazawa-kun continued to observe them from a slight distance. With a determined glint in her eye, Nagi instructed Yuno to clench her teeth, declaring that she needed to get pumped up before the big match. Without hesitation, she delivered a sharp slap across Yuno's cheek. Kitazawa-kun watched, utterly bewildered by the sudden, violent act. Yuno, her cheek now red, looked up at him, managing a weak, questioning why. Yuno then explained to a stunned Kitazawa-kun that getting slapped in the cheek was her method for getting pumped up, a ritual she always asked Nagi to perform before a match. Nagi, meanwhile, silently contemplated putting Yuno back in her place. Kitazawa-kun, still reeling, wondered if Yuno had called him out for some kind of bizarre showdown. Utterly flustered and confused by the strange exchange, Kitazawa-kun turned and fled, leaving a cloud of dust in his wake. Yuno, despite her red cheek and his hasty retreat, shouted her confession after him, declaring her feelings and asking him to go out with her. On the rooftop, Nagi observed that Kitazawa-kun was gone, then calmly told Yuno that she didn't need an answer right away. Yuno, still kneeling, questioned why. Nagi then delivered the crushing news. According to Higuchi-senpai, Kitazawa-senpai already had a girlfriend, and she was reportedly very pretty. Yuno's face contorted in shock and disbelief at the revelation. Despite the recent heartbreak, she stood with a determined smile, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. Unbeknownst to her, 2 other students discreetly observed her from around a corner. Her resolve solidified. Her gaze sharpened with fierce determination. She thought of Yagyu Iyam-senpai, declaring internally that she would not lose. Nagashi Yuno, a first-year student in the basketball club, moved with determination on the court. Her teammates cheered her on, acknowledging her strong performance in her first match. She pushed herself, a fierce resolve burning within her. If she could win this match, she vowed, she would confess to Kitazawa-senpai one more time. The game intensified, a whirlwind of motion as players clashed. She found herself entangled with an opponent, falling to the polished court floor amidst the struggle for the ball. Her teammates rushed to her side, asking if she was all right. She reassured them. A light sprain was all it was, but the clock was ticking. Only 1 minute remained in the 4th quarter. Focus was paramount. After the match, the team gathered, discussing their victory in the first game. However, a significant problem arose. Their 3rd-year member, Takasaki Nana, had sustained an injury. With only 4 players remaining, they faced the grim possibility of forfeiting the next match. Yuno, however, had an idea. She presented her solution. 2 reserve players, they had hastily registered Yagyu Iyam and Miko. Iyam, surprised by the sudden turn of events, questioned Yuno's actions, while Keihu also looked on. Despite her lack of experience, Iyam immediately demonstrated remarkable natural talent, effortlessly reaching the basketball rim. Her teammates watched in awe, realizing that her reputation as a multi-genius was well earned. They mused that with a little practice and understanding of the rules, they might still have a chance. Observing Iyam's raw potential felt a surge of competitive spirit. She declared her intention to personally mark Iyam, asserting that she would not lose to her, especially not in basketball. Meanwhile, in the stands, Kitazawa-senpai, Shiratori, and others watched the unfolding events. Kitazawa, struggling to see clearly, expressed his difficulty. Nagashi Yuno, focused on her dribbling, suddenly found her concentration wavering. "Oh, I was distracted for a second there. I gotta focus for now," she thought, but it was too late. She stumbled, losing her balance, only to be caught by Yagyu Iyam, who quickly secured the loose basketball. "I am still holding, Felt a flush spread across her face as she realized Kitazawa-senpai had just smiled at her. She acknowledged his presence, a quiet, "Yeah, I know," escaping her lips while he adjusted his glasses, a subtle gesture that seemed to confirm his awareness of her. Witnessing the exchange, Yuno's competitive spirit ignited. She declared internally that she needed to do more, to show all her good qualities to him. And with renewed vigor, she began dribbling the basketball with intense focus, determined to impress. Her intense focus, however, led to another misstep. Yuno stumbled and fell to the court, prompting Okubo to rush to her side, asking if she was all right. Okubo then gently reminded her that while motivation was good, they couldn't afford another injury, especially with their current player shortage. Sitting on the court surrounded by basketballs, Yuno admitted to Okubo that she had gotten carried away in the moment, confessing her desire to impress Kitazawa-senpai. Okubo, ever pragmatic, responded that Yuno, as always, had tried too hard and made a blunder. Okubo then teased Yuno, remarking on her short stature, lack of femininity, and constant academic failures, questioning if she even stood a chance against Ayam-senpai, who was pretty and seemed like a good person. Yuno, flustered, retorted that she just wanted to be better at something, anything, compared to Ayam. The team gathered for a pre-game huddle, their hands clasped together in a circle. "Let's do this." Seniors who got demoted, one of them cheered, while Yuno, with determination in her eyes, declared, "We're gonna win this." The atmosphere was charged with anticipation as they prepared for the Inter-High Preliminaries' second match outside the Nishi High Gymnasium. As they walked onto the court, Miko commented that her uniform felt tight, while Ayam, adjusting her own, admitted to feeling more nervous than she had anticipated. Okubo offered a reassuring, nice throw to someone, and another teammate expressed gratitude for the help, the team's collective resolve evident despite their individual anxieties. From the stands, Kitazawa-kun, Shiritori UCI, and other students had come to cheer them on. Kitazawa wished them good luck with the match, and Ayam, upon seeing him, gasped in surprise, wondering if he had truly come to cheer for her. Kitazawa-kun then leaned in, complimenting Ayam on how cool she looked in her uniform and promising to cheer her on. Ayam, blushing, thanked him, while Yuno, observing the interaction from a distance, watched with a mixture of intense emotion and a hint of jealousy. She found herself the subject of hushed whispers among her peers, who openly admired her. One student remarked that she was like a celebrity, while another added that player number 10 from Nishi High was a real cutie. Despite the compliments, Yuno felt a surge of vexation. She had been playing basketball for a long time, yet someone else who had seemingly just joined was garnering such attention. Nearby, Kitazawa-kun cheered enthusiastically, though not for her. A sudden realization struck her with a jolt. The person Kitazawa-kun was cheering for was the very junior from the basketball club she had encountered the other day. Overwhelmed, she cried out his name, Kitazawa-senpai. Her outburst startled Kitazawa-kun, who looked at her with wide eyes. Her teammates, Miko, Nagi, and Okubo, also turned their attention to Yuno, their expressions a mix of surprise and concern as she struggled to compose herself, tears streaming down her face. Yuno made a desperate plea to Kitazawa-kun, asking him to go out with her. She then declared with fierce determination that if she could perform better than Ayam-senpai in this match, then, with the match officially underway, Yuno, Ayam, Miko, Okubo, and Nagi took to the court. Kitazawa-kun watched from the sidelines as Yuno, still visibly emotional but focused, prepared to prove her worth.